Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. How do we do it? 5-0. Okay, so we will go straight then to Eagle Excellence Award.
Allie,
Yep.
it's your show.
Got my 2 Eagle Excellence Award winners over here that were so kind to spend their day with us early this morning and then come back this evening. So hi. Wait, you don't have a face. They're out here. You don't want to come out here in the middle? Come on, join me.
You picked the right one.
No pressure. So I just want to say thank you. I get the honor actually of recognizing these two because they are my left and right hand most days on the brains of the operation. They keep me organized, on task, and they definitely give it back to me when I need it. And they question what needs to be questioned, put a smile on my face when I need it, and they are unwaveringly dedicated to this community and this school. So it is definitely the heartbeat of our school, and we appreciate you more than words can say. So I have to thank you guys both for being here tonight. Lost the name. And I lied about the name. Sorry, they didn't even let me know.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, ladies. Okay, we will move down to item 9C, then our Library Foundation annual report.
Mr. Dries?
You really brought him in tonight.
I know.
That's right. Well, I'm here for the annual foundation report that we're supposed to present. And I would say this year has been a pretty good year for us as far as being able to give money. The Eagle Excellence Award, which you saw two given, we give back to the school $100 for each one. And this year, there were 17 of them, so we will be writing the school a check for $1,700 on that. Special projects can be a number of things. A lot of them are trips. $11,400 approximately this year. We have 13 altogether. We'd love to have more. We'd love to have more so we can send these kids off to have some more experiences. We also provide $10 of an activity fee. We pay for that for up to 3 activities. And for the spring of 24, fall of 24, and the winter of 25, we will be writing a check to the school for $4,190, which means we had that many students, 419 students altogether last year involved in activities. Scholarships, we provide 10 scholarships as a foundation, and we provide $1,000 to each one of those, so there's $10,000 there. And there are other scholarships that are given, but the money flows through the foundation, and that amounted to $9,000 this past year. We received $4,200 in gifts. Memorials amounted to $1,275 this past year. Under miscellaneous, we do support the athletic banquet. We provide $500 for that. Teacher appreciation, back to school picnic, beginning of the year, various things like that. So that was over $3,000. And then the school several years ago decided we were trying to recruit and keep teachers. And maybe one way to do that was provide them with a little extra money. If they stay 5 years, they get an extra amount of money. They call them longevity bonuses. So this past year, we are giving 4 of those for $4,000. And I think the school provides $2,000 of that figure. So they get $3,000 altogether, you know. Teacher gift cards, $3,900 this past year, where the teachers get a $100 gift card and they can spend it for items in their classroom. And as a former teacher, I know you do spend some of your own money to provide things for the kids that the school can't afford. Our Educator of the Year, we've provided $4,000 through that. And our expenses were minimal this year, which was kind of nice. And so for a total, $42,455, we were able to help out the school, providing different funds for teachers and various other things too. So, I don't know if there's any questions. I'll try to answer. Yes, Tim.
So, can you explain, I know you get some requests throughout the year from teachers. What types of things do you support and promote from teachers?
That's part of my board report tonight
Oh,
too.
sorry.
No, he's got plenty of them.
They attended the Coronado Museum. Some kids did. They went to the Dillon Nature Center. Sherry Holmes wanted a Scan Pro Advanced subscription for $995. Garden tubs for families, that was $160. Book buddy field trip, one of the grade school teachers, $522. And let's see, CPL art show is coming up, and we were helping provide, I think we're probably going to have more coming in from that, but $1,200 for that. And then the History Club took a field trip, and I want to go to that because they go to the World War I Museum in Kansas City, and that's awesome, I understand. And so a lot of these trips are not terribly expensive, but I know the school has limited funds, and so we have the money, that's what it's for. I think our foundation was kind of built on the fact that we would try to provide educational opportunities for the kids that could not be funded through the regular school monies. Give them opportunities to see things and hear things that they would not ordinarily be able to see. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Larry,
Anything for that?
thanks.
Thank you, Larry. Yep.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're gonna move down into item 4, which is our public relations time. Before we open up for patron reports, I do want to mention that we have 2 agenda items, which I suspect most of you are here to speak to tonight. So if you are wanting to comment or share comments on academic programs or anything relating to school improvements as far as calendar or other topics of discussion, we have those items on the agenda. And I would like to open up comments for those 2 items at that time when we reach the agenda. So if you are able to hold comments to that point in time, I would encourage you to do so. Also want to remind for awareness that under our board policy, this is a time for you to share your comments with the board, and it is not a time for discussion and questions. So the board is very happy to listen to comments and bring those into our discussions, but it's just not designed for a back and forth time. So not knowing how many of you have attended school boards before, I just wanted to share that information up front. So with that being said, if anyone would like to address the board at this time, now is the time to do so. Okay, we will, and like I said, we will come back to that when we get to those 2 items later on in the agenda. So we'll move on to board reports. Do any of our board members have any items they'd like to report on?
I'd just like to comment, I attended the spring sports meeting at the high school for exchange kid. And the meeting I went to was a track with Mr. Zone. I was just impressed with his presentation, and that he really demonstrates that he's there to coach the entire student. And I thought that was phenomenal. I was really
I do. So I also was privileged to attend the middle school music festival with Mrs. Gehring and Mrs. Cook for band and music. And I have to say, Ellenwood was well represented. It was really nice to see these kids that did solos step out of their comfort zone. It was amazing. And I think and I'm not going to say what anybody got, because somebody is going to say that was, you stole my thunder. So I will just say that we were really, really pleased. I also wanted to make a comment about the kiddos. They did amazing. They were well behaved. They did a great job, and I was very pleased with how they responded. So, yep.
I don't have a lot to report. I was gonna share, I did have the opportunity, and I think a few of us did, to join Macy Kaiser's class for Read Across America event. She does that every year, and it's a pleasure to see that she's in kindergarten now and see how those kiddos react to her classroom and behave, and just the energy that she brings and that she pours into the program. So, to her and to all of our teachers that take efforts like that and do events like that, it's amazing. Our kiddos are in good hands, so I really appreciate that. It's fun. Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent report.
We have been working with the Office of the State Farm Marshal to address our boiler situation. As I communicated with the board, we filed for a 6-month extension, after which we either have to repair it, replace it, or retire it. Ultimately, we need it for one more winter, so we're going to try to find a way to get it done. Apparently parts, we can't find them anywhere in the country. And we've been searching since this summer, so we're going to do the best we can to try to find a resolution. Potentially that could be used for redundant heat, but it ultimately is going to be replaced, so I will keep the board apprised of any progress in that area. Big thing in the legislative session for this year is the new funding formula, and they need to finish that by 2027. That will have significant ramifications for our school and schools around the state, particularly watching the rated factors and then also how the role evaluation plays in that formula. We're going to talk about the bond issue in greater detail at a later point in the agenda, but things are beginning to move forward. The bond sale was officially closed, and we're going to start the projects this spring. If any of you guys have any ideas on a list of summer projects you would like to see done, let me know. I'm going to be looking at my paper over the next 2 weeks to start a plan for that. Obviously, some of the bigger maintenance items are on the list for that, and also our traditional summer routines. So if you see something out in the past, you guys have seen some things, Steve, you mentioned a couple of things that need to get done. But if there's something you feel like need to be addressed, let us know. We are entering state assessment season, and regardless of how you feel about state assessments and scores, it is something that going forward is going to be part of accreditation, and we're really going to look at trying to revamp that, how we handle that, and the level of import we place on that, and ideally we are going to try to improve scores. Again, I believe starting in 26, 27, that is part of our accreditation model, and again, regardless of how you feel about it, it is something that's very important. So that starts in April for pretty much all of our schools. Preview of coming attractions, parent-teacher conferences are on Thursday, March 13th. We have no school on Friday, March 14th, and spring break is to follow. And it's downhill for years. So. Any questions?
Do we know what kind of a role the assessments are going to play for the accreditation?
Yeah, they don't have a lot of details on that, but it is going to be an aspect of it. It's not just like now we basically set a goal and we have to work to achieve that. It could be student achievement related or related to something else. They're not going to give you a choice after that. That is going to be part of it. And
So it's
I don't
by
know.
your funding?
No, not funding, accreditation.
Accreditation.
And it will be interesting to kind of see how they move forward with that and to what degree the accountability piece is. But no one really knows the audit for that yet. And I don't know if it'll look like have a new child behind, or if it's going to be some sort of different model. But ultimately, that will be a part of this accreditation. And we do need to prepare for that. And regardless of how you feel about state assessment, it is something that we do need to emphasize. And I've said for a while, I feel like we can improve. I think we need to address it. That's all I have, Madam President.
We'll move to admin reports. Any takers? Oh, he nominated you first.
Yes, I got volunteer already, it's all right. So I want to start off tonight with a shout out to our teachers, Mrs. Coleman, Mrs. Brock also, our CTE advisors. I was really impressed this week because they went out on their own without prompting to start promoting our CTE pathways and have gone on social media, taken some photos, talked to teachers, students, I've been working really hard through pre-enrollment, and we'll be working with parents this week during our parent-teacher conferences to get kiddos enrolled. But they've done a really good job showcasing our options, which for a school this size, we have some pretty good options. We're just making sure that everybody's aware of them. So we appreciate their time in doing that and doing it on their own volition. Since our last meeting in February, we've had National FFA Week. We were recently pictured with pictures for Drive Your Tractor to Work Day with Mr. Inns. My husband and I got to travel Saturday to Sublette. It was a long bus ride. We got to go with Pet Bus, and the girls played a phenomenal game. It was a heartbreaker, but they worked their tails off. They tied the CPL league record with 19-3, and we're really proud of them. Our boys, they worked really hard, and they ended up with a 12-9 season, and we're just proud of their hard work and accomplishments. Again, February 28th, we had 7 students who went to state wrestling also, so we've had some really good athletic success lately. We had Kaylin Crawford and Emma Hahn we had 5th place and 3rd place respectively, and Emma, actually, I just found out today, was accepted an invitation to the KWCA Shrine Duels. It's the 2nd annual at Newman University, which last year they raised $25,000 for this to Shriners Children's Hospital. So it's a really cool thing for her to get to participate in that. We had 2 students last week that went to Barton County Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge in Great Bend. Maddie finished runner-up in her business endeavor, and Bennett finished runner-up with her concept for this year. We've got the forensics team. We had a 12-team tournament in Bennington with a list. Hopefully you guys can check that out. I won't read all of the names, but we had several 4th, 3rd, 5th, and a lot of participants within that program. And actually, Debbie, you mentioned KMEA and choir. I was actually peeking at the results as you were saying that. Impressive list. I won't name them all as well, but we had several AP, which is advanced performances, and ones. It was an amazing showing, so kudos to those teams as well. And also coming back, Mr. Dries, thank you for bringing it up. All of the field trips I have gotten to attend, I went with 7th grade. We climbed all 296 steps to the peak of Capitol at the Dome. So he's taken them. We've got, let's see, Brown versus Board of Education we went. Juniors and I are going tomorrow to Abilene to do state assessment at the Dwight E. Eisenhower Museum. And we've also got College U.S. History class traveling to Kansas City to the World War I Museum, the Nelson Acton Union Station. They're going to Minden, Nebraska. The number of field trip opportunities for our kids here is amazing. And the fact that they get to go out and do as many things in the community is a real testament to the foundation and what they support in our school. So it's very much appreciated. So one last thing, actually 2, sorry. Winter Sports Banquet, the 26th, when we come back at 6:30. And then happy to announce all seniors have finally submitted their portfolios, and we are scheduling exit interviews. So everything is submitted, and we're downhill. Any questions?
All right, my monthly shout out this month goes to my building leadership team. I got most of them here. They consist of Melissa Jacobs, Macy Kaiser, Andrea Berzer, Mackenzie Hall, Stephanie Gearing, Melanie Johnston, Tammy Buckby, and Amanda Brock. I could not do my job without this group of people. We meet once a month, have some great discussions, drive some changes in our building. They are our leadership team, and they go back and they talk to the teachers in the hallway. It's just a good way to get some information back and forth without everybody meeting. So I'm appreciative of each and every one of them. Library Foundation, publicly, I'd like to thank you for all that you do. I know it goes unseen a lot of times, but our teachers appreciate the stuff that you provide for them, and most importantly for our kids. It does impact them on a daily basis. So we have early release, like Mr. Jacobs said, and then parent-teacher conferences on Thursday. State assessments will come up right after we get back from spring break. They'll run through April 25th. We usually save the last 2 or 3 days for makeups because we have to, by then on that 25th is when they have to be done. So always good. 4th grade wax museum is coming up. Put it on your calendars. April 23rd. Ms. Hoffines, Ms. Foose are working on getting the students prepared. They got some interesting topics. and some people they will be representing. Mr. Westerman always does a phenomenal job of making sure they are well dressed for the Wax Museum. So we really appreciate all he does for that. And this is part of the state assessment for 4th grade. It is a social studies part of it for that. We will have our final food drive for the Elmwood Food Bank coming up starting in April. Be our second one of the year. Always look forward to doing that. We're going to have a hard time beating last time, but if we can come close, it'll be a success. And this year again, whatever class total brings the most stuff, they get either, we haven't figured out, throw pies at me again, which they thoroughly enjoy, or we might do slime this year. Pretty sure my staff enjoys doing a little bit more than the kids, so always looking forward to that. And our teachers do an amazing job. I mean, I go into the classrooms and I see the different stuff, and I almost take it for granted sometimes, some of the stuff that we do on a daily basis to impact kids. And I just want you to know we got a great staff over there. They do amazing things. It just sometimes we just don't recognize it. So, we got spring break. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move down into item 5, consent agenda.
Consent agenda has a few unique items on here. We actually, I don't know if Larry's still here. I am requesting to identify an old sewing machine as surplus property. I think someone who cares about is potentially interested in that. So we'll open it up. But, it's been sitting in storage for a long time. It works, and from what I understand, those are working. It's a fire hazard now. So I request that you identify the surplus property. We do have a request from our cross-country coach to attend an out-of-state meet in Stillwater, Oklahoma, on September 26th of 2025. Traditionally, the board approves any out-of-state requests. I see no issue with that, and I think that's a great opportunity for our kids. And then we do have 6th grade municipal athletic participation for 25-26. That used to be into numbers, then our numbers actually got good, but we still did it because we got some talent there and some skill. And now I think we're back to needing it for numbers. As far as I'm concerned, unless you guys tell me the contrary, this is something I feel like needs to continue on a regular basis. It's been very popular, it's allowed us to buttress our numbers, and it's something that I think a lot of people just come to expect, and once you reach the 6th grade, you're going to want to participate. So place those on the consent agenda in addition to the minutes and numbers.
On the minutes, John was presiding, it says Madam President. We'll be going down to
You guys
the
all
session. I don't know.
I would request you approve the consent agenda with such change being made. Jot that down. John, are you fine with that change?
I move we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, it looks like we'll be moving down to item 7 then for budget update.
Yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about budgets. Hopefully you guys, is your file open? Mine was corrupt for a while, so if you want to take a look and see kind of where we're at, as I informed you when we got our audit, we got some sub-harrowing news as far as our revenue. Our revenue dropped a little bit, rather significantly. We did have kind of a unique circumstance where we had a significant amount of seniors leave that were on free lunch, and our kindergarten class coming in actually had very few. And that bucks all data that we have, and there really is no way to predict that. So projected revenue versus actual revenue is somewhat significant, and the difference is not something that we can take lightly. So I really had to kind of adjust on the fly. I'm going to read a little bit of data here that I have for you. If you kind of want to look at your file there, the third green box, it shows that we spent about $192,650 more than at the same point last year. But again, two, our authority's up, so to some extent that's expected. If you go down to the fifth box, we've expended, we've got 55.2% of our budget remaining this year as opposed to 57.1% from last year at the same time. As I told you last month, that is something I'm watching closely. We're going to work with Brian to try to delve into that a little bit. Just to kind of give you an idea, this kind of underlies a lot of the recommendations and discussion that we've had about a variety of topics. Going into next year, we're looking at approximately a $60,000 deficit, and that's after new monies. So we look at our deficit this year, we carry it into next year, and we add new monies, we're looking at about $60,000 to do the very same thing. We all know we're not going to do the very same thing. So when you look at some of the traditional increases, the district has always typically taken care of health insurance increases and step and column limit for staff. That has been something we have done almost without exception, even during the Brown Act tax cut years, which were probably some of the leaner times for our district. And we've always found a way to do that, because if you don't, you wind up falling behind, you wind up decoupling your fringe, and they never get that year back, and that's something that is not good for your staff. In order to do that, we're looking at about an additional $100,000, so that's about a $160,000 deficit, and that's before any non-salary operating expenses, which conservatively, throw 40 grand at that, just for round numbers, you're looking at about $200,000. We can do that for a year, perhaps 2 years. After the third year, that's not going to work anymore. These are things that I think underlie a lot of the decisions, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the point about extracurriculars, but I just want you to be aware of kind of what we're facing. Some long-term enrollment projections, which are affiliated with budget. A few years ago, I gave the siren song, and I gave a presentation, and I said, I'm noticing a shift in our enrollment, we've got to start addressing some things. And I gave this very elaborate spreadsheet presentation that I'm sure glazed over some eyes, but for me was very important. We projected, I think it was 2 years ago, an enrollment of 434 for 23-24. And it came out to be 431.7, so reasonably close. 24-25, we estimated 420. It was 422.2 based off of our most recent audit. 25-26, we estimated 410. I'm estimating next year about 413.5. So as you can see, we're in the ballpark. Well, obviously, I've projected out for quite a while because I do not want to have to encounter a situation that I inherited where, and Steve, I believe you remember this, where the amount of people here was very small compared to what we dealt with when we had to cut about 6 or 7 teachers because our budget fell off a cliff. As we lose enrollment, we have to start making some decisions so that then we avoid a situation where we have to significantly trim staff and significantly trim programs. Looking at, and I've got a spreadsheet that kind of kicks out graduating seniors, puts in estimated kindergartners plus St. Joe's from 8th grade coming to 9th grade. For 26-27, I'll just go year by year, 393, 385, 370, 354, 343, 323, 308, 303, 298, 293, and 4536. Now obviously, a slight change in that from the beginning will kick out a vastly different number at the end, but I do think if you look at some of our graduating classes, which over the next 7 to 8 years, we even get in the mid-40s, and we bring in kindergarten classes of approximately 20-ish we're estimating, plus St. Joe's will kick in another between 5 and 9 kids. Lose 40, gain 30, lose 40, gain 30, lose 10, lose 10, lose 10, lose 10 each year. I think that's a very safe and conservative assumption. Well, when you start looking at that, I mean, and again, too, whether the 35, 36 estimate's right or not, this yields a high school of about 90 to 100. This isn't just about budget. This is about what electives we can offer. And there are some good questions to be asked. Do we offer too many electives to where they're in conflict with each other? Because obviously that's a systems issue that we need to address. I guess, and Steve, I think you remember in committing to this, I said, as we go through this process, I don't want to go through what we did 15 years ago. And as we drop, I'd really like to look very scrupulously, not that we do anything, but scrupulously at what we potentially have to do. Because I will say, it is awful. And I do have a heart. And when we have to make those decisions that we did, Steve, 15 years ago, and you have to tell 6 or 7 teachers and classified staff that we don't have a choice. Obviously, part of that was the Great Recession. But we also experienced some declining enrollment through that time and didn't necessarily cut programming appropriately. And I think this is something we talk about efficiency, we talk about being smart with public funds. Obviously, it's always the other program, but I do think we do need to be cognizant of that as we go through this. And I would love nothing more for these trends to change. I would love nothing more for our kindergarten class not to be 20 or 22, but to be 30. We can have a different discussion then. But I think as kind of the steward of the money, so to speak, I'm obligated to view these things scrupulously and even set aside some of my personal preference to give you guys the best advice. Obviously, if whatever you guys want to do, we can do. But as if you can tell, I'm trying to segue into this a little bit because this budget circumstance, and this is the first time in 10 years we've had this. We've had the good fortune of court cases increasing the base data per pupil, our enrollment either increasing a little bit or staying the same, and the benefit of being able to go back 2 years to get our base number. We don't have that anymore. Now it's the current year or the preceding year. The legislature changed that a couple of years ago, and when you're in declining enrollment, that hurts you because you don't get to hold on to that higher number from 2 years ago. I say this, we can still have lots of success. We're still going to celebrate our successes. This isn't a good or bad thing. This is just, we got to address it in real terms. And there's a myriad of ways to do it. You know, certainly we need different perspectives, but I think everyone knows part of my passion is budget, and I watch this very carefully. And I want to make sure that going forward, and by and large, we've been able to do what we want to do. We don't have to really scrupulously look at potentially a good experience for our kids in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We try to make sure we have the funds available so that when someone comes up with an idea, a teacher comes up with an idea, a partnership in the community, we have the resources to do that. And that means you have to be vigilant constantly. And I guess from my perspective as kind of the caretaker of the budget, I'm going to ask some tough questions. That doesn't mean we do them. That doesn't mean we consider them. But I want you to be informed so that you guys are aware of what's going on. Enrollment is everything. Enrollment is everything. And that's also why, and I'm not even just talking as far as budget goes, but as far as what programs we offer. And I think that is something that this data should tell you. Right now, our estimates for the last 3 years have been, or I guess 2 years, have been almost right on. I've really tried to work with the CDC. I've looked at EDF County birth rates, but that's really not overly accurate because you can't rule out Ellenwood. We've put out a Google form to where if you're sending your kid to Ellenwood grade school in the future, you can fill that out so we kind of know future kindergarten numbers, just to work with some data. I know our counselor and our principal have worked knowing that, oh, I know there's a 3-year-old over here, doesn't go to the CDC, but we know they're in town. We jotted their name down. We're trying to get the best information we can so we can prepare as good as possible. But then you always get the hiccups too. I had no idea that our kindergarten class would have so few free lunches. And if anyone can tell me what our incoming kindergarten class is going to be as far as socioeconomic, let me know. I'd love to get that. But when you deal with that kind of volatility, you necessarily have some of this. So, Madam President, that's really all I have for my budget report. But I want to let you know, we are going to go through some things. We did have just a brutal winter at the grade school. We had to draw significant more energy, with some heaters and stuff, which most people are aware. We had some additional manpower and personnel that we had to use for that period. So I'm going to try to delve into those numbers. I'm not trying to sound the alarms, but I just want to make sure we stay on top of it. That's all I have.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. I was waiting, I'm sorry.
So we have to estimate the numbers that we think are reduced for free lunches,
Yeah, because we can fill it through that.
but we have to they don't wait on us to fill the form out and send it
Well,
in.
for our budget, we have to do
Or
that.
for the budget.
Yeah. We have to do that beforehand, and then,
So that-
Significantly in advance to be able to do that, so the budget will be constructed over the
Sure,
summer.
okay,
because remember, like, we do
And so it
negotiations
dropped,
the
right.
previous year, so I kind of have to estimate,
right.
and I try to get as much information as possible, and if that number comes off, that's where it can be problematic.
So is the grade school that dropped significantly or both?
The grade school, one grade level, and if bucks every bit of data we have for 800 classes. Thank you, Madam President.
Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna move on to item 8A, which is our academic programming. And so this is for discussion purposes and taking comments. This is the time if you would like to make comments regarding academic programming and offerings at the school. I would invite you to do so. With the number we have in the room, I like conversation and I think we all want to hear from you, so I don't want to limit, but I would ask that if someone's already expressed the same sentiments that you're going to express, maybe be mindful of not repeating everything. You can stand up and say, I want to second what this person before me said. If you want to put in your own words, that's absolutely fine. Just offering that as an option, especially if you don't like public speaking, that's also an option. So I want to open it up at this time for any of our patrons that want to speak to us about academic programs. Sure, go ahead. And if you would, please go ahead and say your name when you come up so we know who you are.
I'm Jane Cook, and I'm the current band director for this year. And we have Mr. Jacobs and my husband to either thank or blame for that. My husband is a graduate of Elmwood High School, and he dearly loves this community and this school. And I'm a 40-year music teacher. I was retired, and my experience is in choral directing, not in band. But I had a visit with Mr. Jacobs, and I just really feel like it was important to try to do the best that I could to keep the band program going for a year. Okay, with that said, it's been mentioned that we had the CPL middle school contest on Friday. The high school was today, and we did really well, really well. Mrs. Gehring put out an email today, this afternoon, as she got back to the staff, and I don't know if you get that, if you're on that email list, I don't know, whatever. But I want to say that when I asked my middle school band today in the high school, I said, I'm going to speak to the board about band. What do you want me to say? And one of my middle school kids said, tell them how good we did. And you need to know, that's a source of pride for them. I have several students that I know, if there's not band for them next year, it will be very difficult because it's what they love about school and they excel at it. And we all know if there's not something that draws you into school and makes you feel important, where are those students going to go? Socially, they're going to go to the dark side. We all know that to be true. I've taught long enough, I've seen that many times. So for these students, I'm here tonight. For all the students, I'm here tonight. And I felt like that I could not just sit by and not say something without trying. Plus, as most of you that know me know, I have plenty to say about a lot of things. Yep. So I've been told that the preliminary number, the preliminary enrollment for next year at the high school band is 20. 20. I have 11 this year. That is growth. It shows that the students want to be there. One of the big reasons I feel that the numbers were down this year, I'll blame myself. When I talked to Ben about doing this, he said, well, you know, we usually have band, high school band is, I think, third period. High school or middle school band is like in the late in the afternoon. And I go, I'm not your Huckleberry. I'm retired and I'm not going to split up my day like that. So I asked if he could arrange it so that it was 2 hours together. Well, 2 hours in the morning is core for middle school. And so that can't really be disrupted, and I agree with that. So it was at the end of the day. So that means that my high school students have had to choose between band or just a variety of other classes that they need or want that are very academic. And so that's unfortunate, and I'll take that one any day. So that's why I feel that's why it was down. It was also down because of the revolving door at the band level, at the band director position. And that's no one's fault, but it's fact. And students like consistency. I taught K-12 music choral music for many years, and I always say I had no one to blame when my kids got in high school if they didn't know what to do musically, except for myself, because I was my own feeder program. And so if you have consistency, kids like that. They need that. It's an important. So at contest, one of the judges, a retired band director from Russell, he was working with one of our students, with Jesselyn Clever. She got a 1 on her flute solo. Of course she did. And he said, at the end, I have to ask, what's going on in Ellenwood? And I knew what he meant. He said, Ellenwood was always just like the premier of a school that size and their band programs through the years. And he said, I guarantee, if you look at all of the equipment that's in the band room right now, if you think of band uniforms, even though they're old, they were a fortune to buy, instruments, music is so expensive. He said, you probably have $250,000 sitting in that band room. And I think he's right. And what a shame that would be, for that to go unused. Trigo County, they eliminated their band program 10 years ago. For 10 years, there's been no band. And suddenly, they hire a director, and he was the director this last year, and he was named the KMEA Music Educator in the state because he's resurrected that program. So can you do away with band and resurrect it? Yeah, but how hard's that going to be? And many of you probably have a saxophone or a flute or a trumpet sitting at home that your kid played long ago. You take that out, you can't move a valve on that thing. They start to deteriorate. They need work. Unfortunately, Ben and the Library Board Foundation allowed me to take instruments to Hutchinson. I made many trips there at the beginning of the year to get our instruments in full repair. And because of that, our students sound good. But that was necessary. When the retired band director said, what's going on in Ellenwood? He said, you guys need to know, people are watching. Other small schools are watching because they're having the same budgets problems that Ben is talking about. So goes Ellenwood, so will go just a whole bunch of them like dominoes. And they'll end their band program. What happens to those students that are like the students that I have that love band and don't love anything else about school? We need to think about that. We really need to think about it. And I'm going to say one more thing. Well, I'll say several more things. But Lynn played football here. He went on to Fort Hayes, and he had a full ride and played football there. We are a sports family. Our son also played, he was a 3-sport athlete, played football all through college. So this is going to be an analogy. Or not really, it's a real thing. So a few years ago, before we retired and moved back, the football program went down to 8 men. Why was that? Was it lack of student interest? I don't know, I'm asking that question. Or was it lack of a smaller student body? But you didn't eliminate football. You found a way. And now it's back. They're playing 11-man again, and they're doing very well. They didn't just cut it out. That's something I would like you to think about. Okay. And I'm going to say, if someone, when, not if, when someone's hired next year to take this position, I will help them. I'll be there to do everything I can. But I told the students all year long, and I say it again today to my high school band, you deserve someone that has a better skill set in band than I have. You deserve that. You are a band. Choir, that's my bailiwick. But I've done my best to try to keep them interested and for them to do well, and they have. They got a won-it contest. That hasn't happened for several years for middle school. It has not. And they did a really fantastic job. And all of the students that I had that played an instrument at contests, a solo, they all got one. That should be worth something. That should be worth keeping. Last couple of little things. So this is a picture of my husband in 5th grade. And he got the traveling trophy for, so funny, I have to laugh. For practicing. Did he really practice all those minutes? No. But he was so proud to get that trophy. And he took a picture, his parents took a picture with him, and, did he stay with playing the trumpet? No, that's probably a good thing. But he didn't. But it was something for him to do at that 5th grade level, which we don't even have this year. Okay, and then this. If you were at our Christmas concert, I put in the program because I did research on the Ellenwood bands. And this picture, tiny, little tiny, and you can see it. But there have been bands in Ellenwood at the high school and the community since 1890. 1890. And are you going to let it end in 2025? Please tell me you're not going to. At least try. At least post it. You never know who might move to Ellenwood. You didn't know I was going to move here. I certainly didn't know I was going to retire here. And you never know. You just don't know. But I'm happy to help. I think that's all I want to say. But just remember, this is an important school, and our students are worth it. Just like those football players that went down to playing 8-man. They were worth that too. So, thank you.
I'm sorry?
Didn't you say to save time that we could say we could second that? And
Yes,
if
you
you
may.
agree with what she said, well, I second it.
Yeah, I would say, I also want to second what she had to say about the band. All 3 of my kids play band. Joe stepped out this year because he couldn't work it into his schedule. I know he and another student both have a lot of music interest and are both in Mystics, but just couldn't make the schedule work. So I'm hopeful that the consistency comes back again too. I think you are exactly right. The consistency is what makes a difference. And everybody knows that grades are better among students who have a music background and have that, and band is a part of that. But I think you may lose your high achievers if we don't keep that here. So some of your highest achieving students may choose to go somewhere where they can participate in some of these other, these extracurricular, not extracurricular, but these elective like band and music and art, the arts. So that I would like you to consider too, is to who do you want to keep in Ellenwood? We want everybody, but we certainly don't want to lose the ones who give our teachers the feedback and the successes that they work for. So I'd like to add that to your list.
Hi, my name is Landon. I'm in the 5th grade. Please do not take my summer. I work hard all year and deserve my summer break. My childhood was already short. Let me enjoy it. Also, please do not take away my opportunities for scholarships away. When you remove the arts, you remove scholarships. Opportunities are elected with healing colleges from the world, and I need my scholarships. There's hundreds of kids just like me who deserve the best. It's my future. Please let me have the best chance.
Thank you very much.
And I would like to add, going back on what you said, this child's in 5th grade. His dad did band. His aunt did band, all here in Ellenwood. He wanted to follow their footsteps, and that was taken from him this year. He couldn't do it.
I'm Erica Parent, and I would like to mention, I have a kid with learning difficulties, and she is an excellent artist. She found confidence in the art program, and if you're not going to offer art K through 12, and I had somebody say, well, the teachers are prepared to include art in their classroom, which is wonderful, but they do so much. When are they going to include that?
So to me, you know, the art program is spectacular for those kids who don't feel the confidence in math and reading and English and all those other things. So, you know, Greg Maxwell runs an amazing art program. He's renowned through county sectors. The art teacher in St. John is my brother-in-law, and he says that Greg Maxwell's art program is phenomenal, but maybe we need to look at Greg Maxwell running K through 12 art if, you know, there's no other option. Just so that we can keep art for the younger kids as well as the high school kids. We just can't take art from those little kids just so that we can keep funds down. But I mean, I hate to do that because Greg is so good with the high school art program, but we just need it in the lower grades as well. So I would hate to see how Emmeline would be without that confident boost that she got from her artwork. So speaking for her and for kids like her, art's something that needs to be there, as well as the music programs. She's a singer. She's one of the ones there at the music festival that got the AP. So yay for that. You know, the music and art programs are just so important for these kids. Some other research that I've been doing to kind of, you know, see if there's other ways that we could help. Another way for raising the test scores, kids with too much screen time and iPad learning is actually lowering their test scores. So why are we introducing screens to kids in the grade school at such a young age? Maybe we need to go back to pencil and paper learning so that they can, you know, learn better and raise those test scores. Maybe that would help with our accreditation and the learning and the test scores. Get back to pencil and paper, find the right way to learn, and maybe that would help raise the test scores and get us back to that. Also lowering funds, not having to purchase new tablets or, you know, things like that. Just some thoughts. So. Thank you.
Good evening. I thought long and hard about this subject. Now, when you have smaller children, they're learning to be developed. Don't you want good things to develop those brains? Art, music, band, those make a well-rounded child. Taking those opportunities away when they are hands-on really deters things and doesn't make development go. I mean, when you have little kids, they need recess time. They need breaks from the constant learning. They need fun things to learn. Art lets them be creative. Music inspires things. And if you don't start that development young, when you get to high school, that's when you're going to start it, you've missed out on some key years of not having that opportunity for children. Really think long and hard before you make any decisions on removing those. It will better help with the environment of the kids. It'll better help with sustainability. And you know, right now we have kids that are getting like 1 ratings and things, and it's because they had that at a young age. Starting over at high school, you're going to put those kids farther behind than everybody else, and that is not fair to the students. That's what I have to say.
I'm an unconventional parent, saying that because none of my kids were in band for any significant amount of time. A couple of them did art classes and so forth. However, over the past little over 2 years, I was thrown into a situation of learning a lot about the mind and recovery and learning. Because of Tracy's accident, I had to learn how to reteach my child how to walk, how to talk, how to read, memory, short-term, long-term, empathy, emotions, the things that come naturally to most of our children that do not come naturally to somebody with a traumatic brain injury. On that note, very early on with his recovery, I incorporated music into Trace's recovery, even when he was in a coma at Wesley, and we've seen such significant changes in his vitals while he was in a coma with certain music. You would think that relaxing stuff would be relaxing to him, heavy metal would be him over the top. And it was things that he was familiar with. I had to go back to his siblings and say, what music did Trace listen to, and what songs that are very familiar to him, because I didn't listen to all of that garbage that kids were listening to. And then again, early on with his relationship with Donna, it was incorporating colors. And you would be amazed at what different colors bring out different emotions, what things brought memories back to him. Something as simple as asking him to draw a turkey, and then we were given stories. Art is so significant. Music, I wanted to touch on this most because that was the thing that we've seen. Music activates the hippocampus of the brain region involved in memory consolidation. Listening to familiar music can evoke memories and improve recall. Improved attention, it enhances focus. The music enhances attention. By stimulating the prefrontal cortex, the brain area responsible for executive functions. Increased cognitive flexibility. When you incorporate music into these children's academic day, you're promoting memory. You're improving, like it says, executive function. You're improving mood. There's serotonin that is released when they listen to music. Music triggers the release of neurotransmitters in the brain, such as dopamine and serotonin, promoting feelings of pleasure, happiness, and relaxation. So not only, are they playing those horrible sounding little recorder things and all that, but the music from band, the music in choir, everything is pivotal to their learning. It is pivotal to their mental health, memory, and so many other things. And this is not just at a developmental age with these kiddos in grade school, but this also carries over to the kids in the higher grades as well. Like I said, I have no child in this life. My child will be graduating high school next year, but for the sake of the little ones and everything afterwards, it's something that we need to consider. Not just their love of music, their love of the teachers, but developmentally, it's critical for them.
I'm in Liberty House, and I've worked with your next couple classes of kindergartners. And this is a touchy topic to me because whenever I get to work, I have a work Saturday, then when I go to see them, they are showing me their art. They're showing me what they colored. They are so proud of it. They stop me whatever I'm doing to show me. You are taking away the joy of these 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 2-year-olds. What are you going to do, and what are you going to tell them when they get into kindergarten and you're going to tell them they can't do art anymore? That's all I'm going to say.
I said I'd do this without crying, but I can't. I'm Sarah Congrate. I have
two students here in Ellenwood Grade School. My daughter is a second grader who's intellectually disabled, and her favorite class is art. It is the only class that she does not, so sorry, she does not have to socialize. She doesn't feel bad because she doesn't know something. It's the only class she's comfortable in. It's quiet, it's calm, she can get her feelings out. She is usually not verbal unless she knows you very well. So this art gives her an outlet for things she may not be able to say. My son is a fourth grader at Ellenwood. Art is also his favorite class. He is a high performer academically, testing in the blue and dark green, very consistently. And I am a student teacher next fall and was really hoping to work here in Ellenwood. Without my children's favorite classes, I may have to move, and I would hate to do that. Because I love it here. I did not grow up here. I was a transplant. But these classes are very important to my children. And because of that, they're very important to me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Luke Abbott, one of the teachers here. I teach middle school, high school, math. I just wanted to interject one small thing that budgetary issues are very difficult, and when it comes time to that, it is hard. I know Ben's mentioned before the need to, or anytime there's natural attrition, we should seriously consider it. A couple of things I will point out is that when I started teaching here, it's my 9th year, we actually had 3 music teachers in the district. We had vocal at both the middle school, high school, and the grade school, and a band position. I'm not saying that we have the budget to bring that back, but there has already been a cut to, in terms of licensed teachers, a cut to the music program. I also, in my opinion, think the delay in not posting the jobs, even if the decision's still up in the air, by not listing it, in a way, it is a certain amount of a decision, because if the job's not listed, people that might consider moving here, well, they're not going to move, or they're not going to necessarily interview for something right at the end of the year. That's something that people plan a long time in advance. Now, if it would get listed, then yeah, maybe someone would be interested in it. But the longer it takes, it would make that decision more difficult. And I fully acknowledge that, in the most ideal sense, we would be looking for someone that is doing something part-time, or maybe they do band art and plus something else. And that's a hard position to fill. But if we don't even try to look, if we don't list it on like Educate Kansas or something like that, if we don't list it, it's not going to get filled. We can't even throw up our hands and say we couldn't find anybody. Thank you.
Hey, I wasn't gonna say anything. And my husband's probably freaking out in the back, but I am here with a little bit more of a positive, I hope, spin on this, because I understand that we have budget issues. I understand that there are teacher issues. Colleges are not graduating teachers at the rate that they used to be, so we all understand that, so there's issues there. What I would like to present and just bring to the board is a little bit more of an idea side of things. Is it possible to have maybe a community panel that would be able to sit in and come up with some ideas for, I don't know, creative ways of maybe fixing our problems? I was at the Music Fest on Friday, and we have a fabulous reputation and a tradition, and after talking to not just the one judge, but several judges, they are looking to us for these other smaller communities to follow suit. We're all in the same boat, and we understand that. But if we can present Ellenwood School as an innovator and a creative solutions, we might be the leader then to move forward with some education solutions. And then that presents our school as, hey, I want to go there because they're working to keep things, they're working to build, they're working to be a positive influence and not just always take away, take away. These kids need to leave our school with a sense of, I have a better idea of what I want to do. I have a better grasp of things that are available to me. I have more confidence in different aspects of learning and education. That's where we want to kind of come together and move forward so that our kids go into colleges and the workforce a little bit more desirable from the other standpoint. If we can come up with some of these, maybe it's a community volunteers that we bring in to do the art instead of the teachers, because the teachers are overworked. We know that. We're on a skeleton crew. That's been said numerous times. Maybe we can reach out to Barton County, and there's programs where they can send students to help. You know, we might get a different student 3 days a week. That'd be fine, but maybe those students can come and they can work. Maybe it's something from the high school that, you know, we get TAs to come down and they teach the art program. I don't know what it is, but I think that if we can at least work to be creative, to come up with a solution, I think it would help not just us, but I think it's also something in a larger spectrum. So just something to think about. So. And I might say, not only did we all have ones in the band, we also had, of the only 5 APs given, which is an advanced performance for people that don't know, our school had 3 of them. So pretty impressive.
I will try to talk loud because it's hard to go back there. 8 years ago, this podium was over there, and I came and I asked permission for my kids who are homeschooled to come in for electives. A couple of you were here back then. I really appreciate that opportunity, and the reason I asked for it is because we have a phenomenal art program. This year, my socially vivacious 14-year-old decided to do band. And if you're going to take credit or responsibility, I guess, for maybe the numbers being a little less because of schedule, you also have to take responsibility for those ones. And the amount of time that you put in doing individual lessons with those kids, that was above and beyond. I've never seen that with a teacher, and I really appreciate that. Not 1 instrument, but 2 with that child of mine, who I'm sure talks during a fair amount of your class time. So, and he loves it. Every minute of it, he enjoys. I also understand we're in a very difficult place as a school district. You're 100% right. The trends are horrible. Like, numbers are dropping, and funds are not getting increased when numbers are dropping. So, solutions. People can have more babies. Solutions. If some of the smaller school districts close down and consolidate, we maybe get more numbers there. You could actively court the public school or the private school and homeschool population in the area. It is an option. I don't know how far it'll get you, but all options. Realistically, when I was in school, I had high 60s in my graduating class, and that's not the world anymore. Something's going to have to happen. And, you know, thankfully we have a good vocal music teacher that handles K through 12, but I don't know long term, you know, if we're looking long term, then we're going to have enough to cover a full-time art teacher in the middle school, high school, and then part-time. I mean, we may have to consolidate band and art, which is or 2 half-time, part-time positions, and those are hard things to find. And I do appreciate that. I think that there are some options, and I appreciate you guys looking into those. And it is a hard conversation because something has to give. And I do not envy any of you for that decision. I would like to say one of the things I've enjoyed about homeschooling my kids is I was able to focus more on more of a classical education and do more of the music and the arts and like push them in that direction, which really does help brain development overall. And I think it's beneficial to all kids, even if, I mean, my husband, who we can all agree did not live, anyone who knew him, did not live in the music department, played trumpet and was able to tell our 14-year-old, hey, I played trumpet. He's like, I mean, did you really play trumpet? It brought some good conversation. So it is a hard thing. That would be the last thing I would cut. It really would be. And I understand you got to pay for someone somehow. I would encourage you to look at the options that have been given to you. And I think that you have some good ones. And I also would love to see just a change. Because when I listened to the last school board, what I heard Ben actually say was, you know, we've got to do things on a lot, we got to make some big changes on a lot of areas. We want to see better, you know, school scores. We want to see, you know, just kids improve in general. And I think there's a lot to be said for, hey, I would be more than willing to come up. The kid may have to deal with hearing a pterodactyl, but if the kid has trouble with math, maybe I can explain it a little differently. Maybe I can encourage a kid and like, come to a game and cheer them on. I'd love to go back to the days where the whole town supported the school and we were all at basketball games. We had Substate here and there were people there that, man, it would have been lovely to have that gym full with the public. You know, so proud of the school in general. It helps those kids feel close to the community and helps them want to stay here. So that's my view. I really appreciate like all that the teachers have done. I know band and music were huge in my life. Art was not so much, but if we're wanting to continue what Mr. Maxwell has built as far as a high school program, we can't just do arts and crafts with the grade schools. We have to teach them art theory, teach them color mixing, teach them the things that they can learn that are age appropriate so that they have that desire to keep working. Because, man, he cleans house in ceramics. He really does. And it's impressive. And all once in middle school. I'm impressed. I'm not sure we accomplished that when I was there. So thank you guys. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help in this process, or if there's any gaps that I can help with for even like the kids, supporting them. I want the community to succeed, and that means, you know, having options for everybody. So, thanks.
Worst for last. My name is Spencer Prophet. I would like to say I've been a lifelong resident of this school. I didn't come here to junior high, but I've always considered myself as a lifelong resident in this school. So, for starters, I want to commend the school board for looking and asking the hard questions. It's not easy. Being on boards, being on councils, it's not easy. I get it. There's some pretty thankless days out there, and there's days you go home and say, why do I do this? I understand that. For starters, I want to thank you. It takes a lot of guts to sit here and say, we got problems. It takes a lot of guts for you guys to stand up and go, I'm not comfortable with this. It takes a lot of guts to say, we're in a place we don't want to be. And that, I understand, is tough. So I commend you for stepping forward and looking for solutions to some very serious problems. I just ask that, as a citizen here and a person that has kids in the school, let's look deep, look hard, ask yourselves the hard questions. Ask yourselves the things, because there's things that go very deep here. This is not one thing, or this is not two things. This is things, there's academic problems, there's discipline problems, there's things here that exist. I just ask that you guys take a little bit of extra time, look deep into things, and please ask the hard questions. One thing we talk about is the kids. It's about the kids. When's the last time a school board member went and cornered a kid in high school and started asking them questions? Probably not. Probably not a lot. But we talk about the kids. Well, let's ask the kids. Let's talk to the kids. Let's understand their problems, their frustrations in the school. Because I think some of the questions you're going to ask a student versus you're going to ask a parent out here are quite a bit different. And you're going to get quite a bit different answer. So I ask you, please somehow reach out to these kids. Understand their life. Understand what they're going through in school. The kids that love band, the kids that love art, why? Why do these things appeal to you? Where do you feel we're short? I know that's a big hill to climb. I understand that. But let's reach out to kids, because at the end of the day, this is what it's really about. There's great teachers out here. There's good coaches out here. How can we help them, both as the community sitting over here and the school board, to make this place better? There are so many questions and so many different angles, guys. I understand it. I think at the end of the day, no matter which side of the podium you're on, that's the goal here. So I just implore that you please really step back and look at this from a lot of different angles. So we need to challenge these kids, okay? I have a child in grade school, excuse me, and I have a child in high school. I have a child that doesn't feel like he's challenged. He's looking for more out of high school. I understand these concerns that you guys have. Believe me, I'm there. I understand it. But let's look deep and look really wide at this, because some of the problems we have might be because of what we're offering or how we're doing things. And I'm not saying anything you don't know. I'm not saying anything out here anybody else hasn't thought of or even crossed their mind. But I'm asking you as a board, please take careful time and consideration with all this. I appreciate it. This is not an easy thing to do. Thank you for your time.
Give it another second. I'll just cut off. Okay. Thank you all very much for your comments. At this time, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I'd like us to discuss our thoughts, what we've been considering the past few months. I do ask, maybe it would be good if we did this ahead of time, Mr. Jacobs. I know you have some budget items regarding, like, specific to these positions that we're looking at, art in the grade school and band in general. I think it would be good for us to kind of put all of that in perspective. Do you have?
Yeah, it's the grade school art position costs us approximately $25,000. That's currently constructed. The band program is currently constructed. These are just round numbers, about $20,000. If we were to go to a full-time band position, we're looking at probably $70,000. And I'm talking bike and total cost.
Benefits and everything.
Yes, total benefits. And again, that's art. If you decide to replace, that's not really new money, because I'm guessing it would maybe $20,000, $40,000 would take. Band, if you only heard that's like a part-time person now, that'd be no really new money, it'd be very similar. If you decide to increase that and then go to a full-time position, which means we'll have to upgrade 3 or 4 additional sections to make it a full-time band. That's when you pay your over $70,000. So then you would have to take that then and add that 50 on the deficit. And that's where they would kind of get money in the problem. There we're kind of going the other direction, if that makes sense.
Can I ask if you can speak up a little bit? We cannot hear anything.
Can you hear me? First time I did that.
Yeah, it's really hard to
I mean, there's also
Yeah.
fans going, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying.
Let me shut
can
this
you
fan off here.
please Speak up, so we can actually hear the discussion. Thank you.
Does that help a little bit?
Much better.
Okay. For the art position, we're looking at about $20,000, give or take. The current band position as it's constructed currently is about $20,000. And again, these are just round numbers. In order to go to a full-time band position, we're looking at probably $70,000, give or take. And that's where it gets to be difficult, because to attract a full-time person, you have to give them a full slate of classes. If we currently offer 2, the marginal costs for those remaining 3 or 4 are going to be rather significant. And I'm guessing they would be, obviously, that'd be up to the building level, but I don't know if that'd be like small group ensembles, if that would be music history, music appreciation. But obviously, you'd have to fill out the schedule each hour to bring someone to give them a full-time position.
Right. So new monies would be 50.
If you went with the full-time
Between both of those, because one was replaced.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's really how you want to figure it. You want to figure it in terms of new monies relative to what you're paying currently. So Steve, you have a question?
Do they have to be certified licensed teachers to teach art and band?
Yeah.
Is there a go-around there?
Yeah, the grade school art program is relatively informal, and technically, if you're providing instruction, you're supposed to have a license. You know, our current person doesn't have one, and some of that goes back to tradition, but a lot of it depends on how you define it and structure it. I would say the program we're looking at the grade school wouldn't require it, and we would make that work. I will say, for the band position, yeah, you would need a license, and, you know, I've looked at some options as far as the part-time one. I am a little reticent, you know, to your point, a little reticent to get out and start advertising, and then all of a sudden we start talking budget, like, yeah, it's not in the cards. I mean, I'm trying to move along as quickly with the budget, but as slowly with the process as possible, so we don't leave anyone hanging. Because there is another element here too, and that's the staff member that we're trying to attract. And, you know, what kind of program do we have to offer them? You know, what kind of commitment can we make to them? And, you know, making sure that, you know, we don't have a rug pull on them to where we're like, yep, you come, and then all of a sudden, we get this news from auditor, and it's like, it's not in the cards. I mean, so you're kind of, there's no good way to do it, but you're trying to balance it. But I would say, from my perspective, the grade school art would be non-licensed and really kind of under the supervision of maybe some licensed staff member, it may even be the principal, kind of like what we have currently. And then the band position would, outside of some rare circumstances, we try to get creative, but ideally would be licensed.
How frequently do our grade schoolers have art? Huh?
All of our grade school, right?
Yeah, how frequently?
Once a week.
Once a week. Sorry, I was looking that way, and maybe I was too much.
A follow-up to that, then, is there any chance of working with the adjoining district for that one time a week to come over?
We could, again, I think that always sounds good in theory, but then you have to convince someone to spend one of their hours driving over here and then going back. Again, from our perspective, yeah, that'd be an ideal solution. But having someone say, yeah, I'm in this building for 7 hours, but now I'm gonna stop, in our case, I'm gonna go over to Central Plains and then come back. You'd have to find someone motivated to want to do that. And perhaps they're out there, I don't know, and that gets into, I guess, the creative solution model. You know, and maybe that is something going forward we have to look at.
Bart had a pretty good art program out at Bart, and I didn't know if there'd be a way, I don't know, I know they come over for something like the grade school, they're used to, for, wasn't art, but it was some STEM, there you go. I didn't know
Can we reach out to them and ask them if there's anything they can help us with at the college for a student?
We can, yeah, absolutely.
I think the thing that we look at when we look at solutions like that is we need stability with it. We need to have some control and stability.
Yeah.
I don't want to eliminate that and feel like we're in limbo there. So that would be something to consider.
And that gets to the operations side, which again, we obviously want to get creative, but there has to be, to some extent, to manage this, a consistency, a stability, common understanding, and the fact that you can just throw together something and do it. I mean, you know, Joel and I talk about this all the time. We get really creative and we can make things happen. At some point, though, I think, you know, people, maybe kids begin to lose faith, and it's like, it's not serious, it's kind of thrown together. The kids can kind of sense that a little bit. And
I was just gonna say, I did visit with Jennifer Klepper about her project or idea. And while I thought that it was great, I worry about the consistency. When you have a volunteer program, that worries me a little bit, just because, let's say we have somebody that decides they're gonna come in for art and we split it up between 3 different people from the community. What happens when that goes away? Then we're in another issue. But I still think that it needs to be talked about, thought about. What can we do? Because maybe we're better off at least with that model than absolutely nothing. And I do like going out to Barton County and talking to them, students even. see what they can provide. Again, consistency, I worry about that, but I think we at least owe it to look at it.
It's kind of like, yes, we may have to improvise to overcome.
Yeah,
the
you're gonna be
problem.
teaching art when nothing else hands out.
I don't want to show up to watch.
So with art in mind here, it sounds like we're all in agreement that we want to see some option at hand. Am I gauging that? Okay. So, I think we're gonna have to look to you then to, like, we want some options to keep
So are
something
you
in the grade school.
wanting to hire someone then in a similar role to what we currently have? I'm just asking for clarification. I want to make sure I
Right.
understand what
I
you're
think
doing.
all of the above, whether it be a volunteer program that we put together, or there's somebody that would take over the program like what's being done, I think it's worth at least.
I guess I'm saying, obviously, we'll go less. I mean, if we can find someone who will do it on a volunteer basis, great. I'm saying, how far do I go, though, as far as, are you guys wanting to then find someone who potentially costs $20,000?
Yeah, basically to maintain a once a week dedicated art instruction for each class, is that? Yeah.
And then,
So,
Yes.
okay, then,
hold on just a second.
yeah.
So, at our last board meeting, I just want to remind everybody where we sat at last board meeting. Last board meeting, we talked about this, and we decided that, you know, we were all prepared that if we cannot find a solution, that we were prepared to say we were gonna have to see art go. And so now we're sitting here and we all emotionally are invested because it's hard to listen to this and emotionally understand that this is gonna impact some of our current students and our future students. And I'm hearing from Ben, we've got budget issues. I'm hearing from Ben that, you know, if we go out and we attract somebody to this position, especially for band, and we have to pay them $70,000 because the likelihood is that we aren't gonna find a part-time person. There is just not gonna be a part-time person unless somebody can plead with Jane Cook and say, hey, let's do this. And I know I've talked to her and she cannot do it. So if somebody moves to the district and says, I'll do this part-time, we're great, but investing another $50,000, I don't know budgetarily if we can afford that. And I guess my question is, am I saying this correctly? Can we afford it? Can we not afford it?
Let me be a little more abstract and let's cut to the chase here. In 5 years, if projections hold, we're gonna be at 354 kids. Down 50. My staff, I believe in my, what did I say about the administrative team in maybe 10-ish years? What did I say? I'll make it personal, as we don't want an interaction. In 10 years, you're not gonna need 3 administrators. You're gonna need a K-6 principal superintendent, and you're gonna need probably a 7-12 high school principal. I mean, I'm thinking ahead here. I mean, and again, let's just cut to the chase here. There is no one who loves the arts more than me. 2 of the 12 kids in the current band program are mine. The director, co-director, sorry Stephanie, of the musical is my best friend. I go to Music Theater of Wichita no less than twice a year. I like sports, I come from the background of sports, but I'm married into that. I love nothing more than the arts. I love the value it provides. I encourage my kids to be in every single opportunity that they can be. And I guess when I look at this, the fact that I'm even talking about this should tell you kind of how strongly, on a profession level, I feel like we at least have to have this discussion. And I'm trying to front load this because this is just the beginning. And it doesn't need to be bad, it just means we have to plan. Going forward 4 or 5 years, maybe it's not band at that time, or maybe it's not art, but it might, I'm just speculating here. VOAG, or art, or shop. In 7, 8 years, administration. I'm not afraid to say that. At some point, that has to become a part of the reality. And I guess because of, my experience 15 years ago, and I largely had to create a new structure so that we could get us out. And Steve, I hope you'll vouch for that. Like, I'm doing my best here, and I hear the stories. I do. They affect me personally. And I don't, and I'm injecting me. Obviously, the board's going to have the final say. You tell me what to do, I'm going to do it. But I do think one thing that I inherited that has been a long-standing tradition in this district is we have never, and I've been in this district as a teacher for 20 plus years, almost 30 years, we've never had financial issues. And I take a lot of pride in that for the 15 years I've been here. And I guess if that means in the short term we have to address some things, I'm willing to do it. If someone asks, could we do all this stuff this year? The answer is probably yes. Then next year, we're having a big discussion. And I guess to your point, and I didn't want to interject, we can do these things, but then at least the next meeting, I'm going to have to bring you a staffing list and say, what are we talking about? Now, it might not be this group that's in here then. It'll be a different group. I'm not sure it solves much. And again, I like to feel like the district is agnostic largely towards programs. Every program is important. I don't know if anyone would ever say that fill-in-the-blank program is bad. And we've cut athletics before. Steve, I remember you're the one holdout for golf. Do you remember that?
Yes.
When we had to cut golf. At a certain point, when you start looking at numbers and participation and efficiency, and you're starting to get into some of the metrics, regardless of my personal feelings, we have to at least have the conversation. And I think when we get into the question of, is this good for kids, I think that's the wrong question. Of course it's good for kids. Welding is good for kids. Shop is good for kids. Band is good for kids. Foreign language is good for kids. Small class sizes are good for kids. Our Eagles program is good for kids. It's all good. And then again, too, I know it's my job. I've got to figure this stuff out. But at some point we do have to say, and this is kind of the purpose of this, what do we prioritize? We're trying to get an idea of, when given the choice, and actually it was ironic, we had a couple of people say, I don't know how to select, they're all important. I'm with you. They're all very important. But that doesn't mean we get to excuse ourselves from making the decision. At some point we have to say, this is what we prioritize, and not everyone's going to. I'm not probably going to get my personal way on a lot of things. But I do think that at some point we have to have some of these conversations because, again, in 5 years, we're not just talking band, we're talking deep things that affect this chair, those chairs, and really every chair in the district. So I guess you want me to...
Let me backtrack just a little bit.
Please.
I want to ask questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Cant,
Yes, ma'am.
what kind of, or have there been conversations about if that position goes away, what can we be prepared to see in
I talked to
place
some of the
of?
staff members, we'd probably make it a part of a class at some point during the school day, once a week. I always say, in elementary, it inherently, especially lower levels, do art without calling it art. There's a lot of projects in there, cutting, pasting, coloring, shapes, different things like that. The older classes will be a little bit more involved because, and let's face it, we've got Lisa McMullen, living legend, phenomenal teacher. I mean, I would put her up against anybody. We've got a great one down there. It can always be done. It will just look different. We had to find, we would find the time to do it within the classroom, which is a lot of schools do. My previous district, We didn't have art for a long time. We didn't have music for a long time. So it was done in the classroom a lot. We had nothing. The only reason they have a music program now is somebody literally moved back and said, I want to do it. That was it. I don't know if they have art today or not. I think that person left. So, like Mr. J, we'll always make it work. I mean, I think we do a pretty good job. We'll figure it out.
And on the topic of band, I have been working a solution, to your point, to find a part-time person, so because I am aware there is a certain dynamic of when you have a high school, you want a band to play the games and to build spirit. I mean, I'm not naive to that. To where then if the board decided not to go with full-time, I would try to, at the very least, ensure a middle school experience, a high school experience, and potentially even a 5th and 6th grade experience. I've got a couple of options, and again, I try to, and some of this stuff is sensitive. I'm not gonna make a lot of this public. I'm gonna try to work behind the scenes to see if these even are possibilities, so that then whatever directive you give me, I have fallback options. You want this, I've got this. You want this, I can go here. And the machinations of that are a challenge, both in management and also following the appropriate chain of communication as well. Because you don't want to mislead anyone, but you also want to make sure that you can strike while the iron's hot when the opportunity arises. So I guess that's where I'm at. So I do feel like potentially we could find someone at the very least for part-time band, and then grade school. I think it's a different dynamic if we work on the department at all. The fact that we can do it within the classroom, I think, makes it a little bit more feasible, because there you're talking about a different paradigm. So I guess I await what the board has to say.
I think what would be a help to me is if we had in a sense, a 5-year plan, because everything you're saying is exactly right. We can do this in 1 year, but then all of a sudden we got to let staff go. So, and it seems like it almost would get down to head count of licensed personnel. I mean, and other things follow that too, right? But anyway, that's kind of the basis of you deciding on what programs you're going to offer. And these are projections; they're not promises. But like 354, maybe that's the best number we got, or whatever range, or something like that. So, in a sense, it seems like for each of these populations for the next 5 years, we have basically amount of funding and basically amount of staff we can afford. And I think your point, which is exactly right, we shouldn't plan on a staff that lasts for 2 years, but will drop off on the 3rd, 4th, 5th. And if we see the staff decline to the 5th, maybe then it's opportunistic. If the teacher leaves us 3 years from now, but we know we can't fill it 2 years from now, that's what you do. You don't want to come up to somebody and say, sorry, you're doing a good job, but you're gone. I mean, it's leave. And I think that's some of what's happening with band is opportunistic. We happen to have a full-time band lead relief. But the thing that would help me that started, maybe just a head count of teachers, and how that would be dispersed amongst the mandatory classes that we have to have. We're going to have to teach math, we're going to have to teach English and all that kind of stuff. And then it gets a little more complicated. I think like some of what people are talking about here is like a grade school art, or maybe have some flexibility, or are you suggesting to maybe there's some flexibility in a part-time band, that kind of thing. But that would be a help. And what you're saying is right. I don't want us to hire a part-time art teacher at the grade school and a year from now and say, gosh, we got to make these cuts and you're gone. And I think us having a plan like that, whenever we do want to hire somebody, say, hey, it's not, we've got the projections that we're going to be able to have money to keep you around.
Come up with a document to at least give some estimates.
Yeah, and a range. I mean, next year you can type pretty fast. Next year after that, the range is greater. 5 years is a little bit more of a range. But anyway.
And I do want to stress, if for some reason through
if we get
success and we get an industry that moves in, or we get out of state or the out of district dynamic changes, and we get obviously these numbers are no longer relevant. These are all estimates, but I will say out of the 3 years that we estimated, they're all pretty much pretty close. And again, too, it's not. When you kind of understand the dynamic of outgoing graduating seniors and incoming kindergartners, we've got a good relationship with the CDC, and then incoming 8th graders from St. Joe and 9th graders, you get a pretty good estimate of what you're going to have every year, and that's why these aren't just shots in the dark. Now again, could that change? Of course, and the further you go out, the greater the opportunity for change. but I feel like we've got a decent grasp on that. But yeah, to your point, we could certainly do that.
And since I'm done all talking now, you know, on band, you know, as has been mentioned here, and I'm not an educator, but my best understanding is it helps us to think smarter, you know, some neural connections in your brain. I mean, that's what band is. And so even fifth and sixth graders that we have go out for band, and then by the time they're sophomore, they're gone, they're quit. Well, they still, you know, got that education. They still got the development in their minds back in fifth and sixth grade too. It looks like our fifth and sixth grade has been averaging about 30, you know, in the band head count numbers he gave us. Middle school about 20, high school about 25, more or less for the last 3 or 4 years. And so, to me, I know the natural thing is, well, if we've got to give up anything, we're going to give up fifth and sixth grade. But that means there's, you know, 30 kids that are missing out on this ability to improve their thinking. And also, it's almost like I think it's kind of mentioned out here, it's almost like you're just heading down the path where you just aren't going to have head counts 2 or 3 years down the road have any kind of a band.
Is that including St. Joe's on fifth and sixth grade?
Well, I think it's everybody, right?
Does that include?
Yeah, back then it did, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
And I should know this. You know what? St. Joe's has done something for fifth and sixth grade band now, aren't they?
That's correct. And we were fortunate to find Jane. I mean, she remembers the conversations we had. Supremely fortunate, done a wonderful job, and you know, it certainly extended us a year. If there's anything that I guess, you know, my heart desires, I would like to kind of keep her legacy going, because she did work this hard for a year, and she did keep it going, she did build the excitement. So certainly there's an element of emotion that's for me as well, beyond just, you know, my own personal connection.
We need to increase our volume.
Oh.
Ben, that means
Right.
you're
Okay.
being soft.
Yeah. Again, you know, Jane was an 11th hour hire. You know, I had to cajole her a little bit and work with her. She did a wonderful job, and I guess if there's, you know, some aspect that's emotional to me is, you know, I would like to kind of continue her legacy a little bit, because she did put in the year, and she did give it a wonderful experience for those kids. So, again, that's certainly not lost on me. I guess, and again, this is the role from this chair, like I'm looking ahead here, and I'm even thinking the next meeting we're gonna have with this, and it's gonna happen. And that speaks to your point as far as, you know, maybe how do we best plan for that, to try to front load that with communication, and try to avoid, and there's no way you can ever prevent the blind side. I didn't even know until we had our audit that, you know, that was gonna be, you know, we're gonna get some numbers change on free lunches. Some of that stuff does come out of the blue, and I try my right best when it comes up, to be transparent and let you know, hey, here's what's going on. And so some of that, it's difficult to avoid, but to your point, I think you try to plan for it as best you can, so that when it does come up, as many people as possible kind of know, okay, we've had some discussion, this is kind of the natural order of things, I guess.
Now, you mentioned possibilities with a band of a part-time. And I don't know if this is too much tuition, but we had part-time middle school, high school, and part-time grade school, you know, so we keep fifth and sixth going. I guess it'd be the question of if it's even possible, or that we'd be able to find people like that, and then how that money works out.
So what direction, I guess? Let's get down to brass tacks. Do you want me to search for an art person? Do you want me to search for a full-time band person? What are your thoughts?
Well, just with the money that we know right now, if we went with a part-time band person and we did, you know, like say middle school, high school, maybe we just didn't have the time to do grade school, in this 5-year projection, is that good for 5 years? Is that good for 3 years? Or would we be confident we could, you know, maintain that, you know, that long? Or?
Yeah, I think with the person I'm visiting with, I think there's some potential for some stability. And it actually gives us some increased flexibility as well. I think there's the potential with one of the options I'm looking at, there's some potential for some stability there, and even long-term growth and flexibility. So.
But budgetarily, sustainable
sustainable.
for the next
well,
3 to
it's-
4
it's
years?
Pretty much neutral to this
So it would
now.
be with our current, like, it'd be like
It would be
replacing our
similar,
current.
yeah, I mean, it'd be a little bit more because if we added fifth and sixth or whatever, that might have to be combined, but it would be a little bit more, but we're not that, that's the kicker. To bring in a full-time person, those 3 marginal classes that you have to add are gonna cost $50,000. And then also too, I mean, there's a politic to this as well. You know, grade school, tight, we've gotta, increase class size, but we're gonna invent sections over here so we can get a full, and I get the rationale, and that's what you have to do. But there is a dynamic there that does, kind of make you look at, how are you spending your dollars from an intra-staff perspective, and not just, from the outside looking in.
And this, I never really thought about this. How does that change our grade school classroom day, in a sense? Not sending kids out to band. I mean,
Go back to a previous model.
well, I guess that's going back to the model we're doing.
What's that
today?
Fifth and sixth?
Yeah, in other words, what happens in our regular grade school classrooms when the kids are going off to
Right
band?
now?
Yeah.
You gave us more time for, I think we added math and English, one more section of that. Am I correct? Yeah, we extended the time out for that, so. What were they in band for? 40 minutes?
It's 35 or 40.
35 minutes.
Okay, so you just, and I don't want, I'm doing more work.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of start closing the loop on this, if we can maintain what we have currently for the same dollars, that's definitely what we want to do. I don't think anybody sitting on this board ever wants to say, we want to get rid of band, because that is not the intent, ever. So if we can find someone, you can work some magic, do whatever, that's what I think we want to go towards for the same amount. If it's gonna cost an additional $50,000, I don't think that's sustainable for the next 5 years. From listening to you talk about our numbers, so I think at that point, then we would have a decision to make as to if we don't have a part-time person for $20,000, I don't know that we can go to finding a full-time person for $70,000.
And just to clarify, you can do that, but then the attention has to go elsewhere then.
Right.
I mean, yeah, so it's a trade. I mean, I never want anyone to think that we
Right.
foreclose on that one option. That option's always available, it just means then we've got
That's a good point, yeah.
Yes.
another option that we're gonna have to look at.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I've got some marching orders for the band. That- Yep. Art?
Art was my favorite class next to recess. And so I would hate to lose art, but I also was in a bigger district. I was in Dodge City for a while, and it was our classroom teacher that did art, and I still fell in love with it and had appreciation for it. I hate putting more on our teachers. It would be great if there was a group of people that volunteered to come in and take that off and do that, but I think if we can't have a consistency on a volunteer basis, then I would say then we probably should look at letting the teachers do something with their kids versus spending the dollar figures, because I don't want to hire somebody for 20 grand, even though it's a passion of mine. But if we can't keep them for 5 years, and or keep them for 2 or 3 years, and we're back here making the same decision, we're just kicking the can down the road. And I think on the bottom line, it's going to hurt us financially over a long period.
And I think, to maybe help with this, think long-term here. What do we want these programs to look like long-term? I mean, are we gonna have a need long-term for a full-time band instructor? Are we gonna have a need for that art position long-term? I think those are kind of things that maybe will help crystallize the decision a little bit. Obviously, we're thinking about here and now, but what is the long-term, maybe 15 years-ish, to 2040, what kind of programming do we want to have? Are we gonna have something that includes 7 periods of instrumental music? Are we gonna have that 3-hour pullout or whatever, 3-day pullout for grade school art to get all of the kids that one day? I mean, I think when you think about it that way, I think, for me anyway, maybe it becomes a little bit more obvious that, okay, this isn't something we can, okay, this person's in, now they're out, now they're in, now they're. I I think that maybe provides a little more structure.
So with band, I think we have kind of
Yeah.
a possible solution. With art, I think that we can fill the gap with a classroom teacher, and then I would like for you actually to visit with Jennifer Klepper, because some of the ideas that she had, and I'm not at liberty to talk freely about that because it was just a collaboration between the two of us, but she has some very interesting ideas that maybe would be sustainable, possibly. And so I would like to at least hear what she has to say, so we can then come back and talk about if it's sustainable. But then going back to classroom.
That also goes on board.
Yeah. So, and what, if I heard you right, what you're saying is art, that we're gonna go back to the classroom this upcoming year. But, and that, you know, I'm not saying that might not be the most sensible thing long-term either, but also when we take a look at that longer term, that 5-year plan, that's something to take a second look at.
What Jennifer's talking about would take us through 5 years.
Yeah, so,
Possibly, so.
so I guess, like you're saying, that's the immediate, but maybe the future is different.
Because we, again, nobody wants to see art the way we have it today go away, but we at least have a solution for art in the classroom. Albeit not Lisa McMullen, but those are big shoes to fill.
Well, I think the benefit of that is from what, you know, the little bit sounds like, it's in the classroom. We may not have a licensed person doing that, but they're in a classroom, so maybe licensed is still present. I don't know, that's where I don't know the weeds of that, but,
Right.
okay. All right,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
okay. Thank you guys. Okay. We're gonna move on to item 8B, which is school improvement initiatives. So again, I'm going to open up the floor to anyone in the room that wishes to address the board regarding any of the school improvement options that have been laid forward, or that you just simply want to share opinions on. I can't hear you.
Is this the 4 days school week?
Yes, calendar initiatives.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was.
Yes.
So if anybody doesn't know me, my name is Brooke Cook. I'm a lifelong resident of Elwood. My dad was on president of the school board for many years. About 20 years ago, he was the one on the school board when the big bond issue passed, when we got the practice gym. And that because we had to sit on stairs if we went to lunch, and they couldn't close the lunch. So we were having 60-some classroom back then, or per grade, a lot of them. And so we were fitting about 30 in the grade school in a classroom. So I think a suggestion for an improvement idea is to move the K through 6 over here. Because we can have one teacher, because we used to do one teacher for 30 kids back then. I think it can happen again. And I think we can move the, playground here, and we'd only have one building to take care of instead of 2. And that would, at least budget-wise, save some money. So that is one idea. The 4-day school week, I don't really have any comment on that one. But the year-round, I do. I have a special needs kid. He is actually diagnosed by a doctor. He's autistic and severe ADHD. And with that, he has a lot of struggles. We spend 2 to 3 hours a night on homework already. So if we add more homework on a 4-day, I didn't say I was going to talk about a 4-day, but now, that would be a struggle for us. Sorry, I'm nervous. I am not my dad. My dad talks in front of people all the time. So, but going to it year-round, he needs that downtime in the summer. It takes him, if you have a week off, it takes him a couple months to get back on track, and you'll have a lot of behavior issues with that, to get him back on track, to get him back to where his routine is, and it's just such a struggle. And so I have a feeling there'll be a lot more IEPs,
and a lot more, and does USD 428 then have the resources to go year-round, because they're the special education services, when they're already, they're already shorthanded already with as much as they have. Because he really struggles already, and he really needs that downtime, because he has what's called autism shutdowns, which if you have an autism shutdown, your brain actually will flip off. And you will not get anything there. He's just like in survival mode, that's it. And if we overwhelm him, I'm gonna spend 2 to 3 hours, and I might have to look at transferring schools, because he's not gonna be able to handle that. I've gotta do what's best for my kid. And I don't wanna do that because I've graduated here, both my parents came from here, my grandma graduated here. So I really wanna stay in Ellenwood, but I've also gotta do what's best for my kid. So I don't think a year-round school is a good idea. I think there does need academic help, whatever, improvements. But that's just all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle Magner. I was asked to come speak about the 4-day potential school week on the hospital. To say the amount, granted, the people that work for my hospital, 80% of them are the fairer sex, so we're going to see a large impact in the daycare area if we went to a 4-day work week. It would be a huge impact on our staff and our availability. I was asked to come and say that, and it is the truth. I mean, we would see, it's already difficult when you go through flu season and have people out who have to stay home with kids and all that. If we saw us go to a 4-day school week, it would be a massive impact on the hospital. So, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead. All right.
That's fine.
Okay, so like my son was up here a little bit ago, he kind of touched on, the all school all year long thing, a little bit. My husband does work in Colorado. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Colorado has gone to pretty much 4-day school days, okay? We're kind of mixed feelings about it. I'm not going to tell you it's a terrible idea. I'm not going to tell you it's a great idea, okay? Kind of in the middle of the road. What I will say is that the calendar that was presented was a scrambled up mess. If you look at the way that Colorado does it, it's totally different than the calendar that you guys had offered. And I think maybe taking a little extra time and a little bit of extra research into that to kind of clean it up and then re-present it might also be a little bit helpful. Because I'm not going to shut down the idea, okay? I understand we have an issue. We also do need to look at childcare. I'm not saying school's a babysitter, though I feel like we might have a kindergarten through 3rd grade teacher that's a glorified babysitter. However, school is not a babysitter, and I understand that, okay? However, it is hard for working parents when this month, you're going to school 5 days a week. This month, you're going to school 4 days a week. This month, we're taking Monday off. This month, we're taking Friday off. That becomes a very, very scrambled conglomeration. You see how that's kind of messy? Clean it up, re-present it, and then let us look at it. Does that make sense?
Can we just make a clarification real quick? Because I think that for everybody listening, we want to make sure that you understand. The calendar as presented for a 4-day week was the month of August would be 5 days a week. Then the month of May would be 5 days a week. Everything in between those would be the 4-day weeks, and you would always consistently have that Monday of the week off. So there's, I just want to make sure that we're all understanding that. I won't get into the all-school, because I think that your question or comment was basically around the 4-day week. So August and May, 5 days a week, everything in between would be Mondays off consistently every week.
Hello, I'm Melissa Jacobs. I'm Title I at the elementary school curriculum coordinator for K-12. I've been part of this discussion. I'm on the KISA team, DLT, so I've been very involved in this discussion about school improvement. Thank you for giving me the time to talk to you tonight. I have shared some information about what we are thinking the 4-day week would look like with an additional professional development day for our staff. And I hope you guys were all able to get that over email. If not, I have some copies of that if you'd like a copy of that as well. But we're here tonight to talk about the potential of the implementation of a 4-day work week alongside with the 5th day as a professional development day. We are advocating for this calendar change because we believe it is what's best for our students and our staff. By adopting this model, we can greatly improve the quality of our instruction, better serve our students, and implement more effective teaching practices. This initiative is about providing the students with the best possible education we can give them and ensuring more successful outcomes, which is what in turn we have been discussing at all of our meetings. We want our test scores to go up. We want our students to be higher achievers. As a staff, teachers do not have the time to thoroughly plan for each individual student. This 4-day work week would accommodate us to do that, to really look at every student, see what those students' needs are, and to be able to make plans for each of those students, and hopefully provide the services that they need at a greater way than what we are providing right now. So if you have, I did say you could ask me questions. I thought it was going to be a little bit different. I don't know if you guys have any questions about what I presented to you. I know this is probably not a back and forth. So if you do have questions, please let me know or email me them. Add to that, my group over here.
So you're advocating for?
Yes.
Yes.
Advocating for this 4-day week, yes, correct. So we have done a lot of research with the different models from other schools. Ours isn't a strictly 4-day work week. Teachers will be working on those Mondays or every other Monday, depending on which route you decide to go. I currently use a model like this similar in my title practices right now because I have a staff of 5 pairs and we look at data weekly, on a weekly basis, and we make change plans every Friday to get prepared for the next week. We've had great success, great growth with that type of model. But again, I have time to do that with them. If you're within the classroom, that time is not an option for being within the classroom teacher. They don't have that time to actually look at that data. So this would be a very data-driven initiative. Again, getting our students' scores up, giving them the stuff that the opportunities they need, along with our staff, giving them training, providing them in-services to show them how to look at data, and being able to use that data to, again, hopefully improve our student scores and student achievement, and giving the teachers the time to do that. So,
Thank you.
I'm Angie Coleman. I'm the school counselor 7 through 12. I've also been a 4th and 5th grade teacher. I've taught at Chase 7 through 12th grade English. I've worked at Barton County Community College as director of Upward Bound. I have 3 students in this district. We should be going to Chase, but we're not because of the programming here. And I can list off the top of my head 15 other kids that are doing the same thing. So we do attract families because we have 28 in our middle school, high school, 28 student activities, sports, clubs, the arts that they can be involved in. When we talk about going to a 4-day week. And unfortunately, the middle school, high school teachers were not involved in that conversation as far as any planning or questions or anything about that until mid-January at least. So, it's kind of a shock right now. I don't think everybody's absorbed it in this building. The middle school, high school level of education and then just the activities in itself are a whole nother animal. We don't stay in one classroom for the majority of the day. Our kids are already gone a lot. They already miss a ton of class time, especially those that are involved in a lot of activities. Sports, I know of one junior this week who will be here for 1 day this week. And so they're already missing class time, which I believe will affect them just having another planned miss class time. To that point, we do see some benefits as well, but probably more harm. Most of our teachers went into teaching to impact kids on a daily basis. Would I love to have a 4-day work week? Sure. I think everybody in this room would love to say they get 3 days off a week or whatever, even if we are doing some more in-service stuff. But I don't know that that's best for the kids. I have a farm family. Yes, they would be working on the farm that day. But through all the months of December and January and February, no, they'd be playing video games, to be honest. That's kind of what kids do now. We have a lot of options for students now, and I think we've lost some students to that, homeschooling. And then adding that homeschool kids can participate in activities. While that is good and it increases our participation numbers, it also allows for another option to not be here in our classrooms. And so that's one thing we need to kind of consider is will we lose students to that who they're like, well, I can school at home and still participate in the sports I want to do. We've also lost quite a few students to online programs, and that's just kind of a nuance that we're going to live with for the rest of our lives. But just some things to consider when taking into consideration the 4-day week. Personally, my kids, I keep saying this to people, I'm not worried about my kids. I will make sure they have things to do. I'm worried about those kids that already struggle to do well, and now we're gonna send them back home where there's some of them that we're parenting them here, and the weekends aren't great. And so just taking all of those things into consideration, and it's too bad we can't do one thing at the grade school and one thing at the high school, because it is just such a different schedule and such a different type of participation. Most of our teachers teach middle school and high school classes. Most of them are coaches or sponsors of at least one extracurricular activity. So they're gone, our kids are gone. It's just kind of a lot to consider and to take in. I just don't know how we would make that work. We will lose minutes regardless of 5 days a week in a couple months. We'll lose minutes. Mainly in May, they're hardly ever here after spring break because of track and softball and golf and tennis and all of the other things that we do. So I just want you to consider that. Also, I do know of 2 qualified people interested in part-time art at the grade school that have reached out and have, so if you're interested in getting their names, I think they've been maybe told that it wasn't going to be replaced, but after the conversation today, if you are interested in those people, I know they don't want full-time, so, I can give you their names as well.
Could you just have them reach out to them?
I can. They have reached out, I know, to the grade school at least, but I can. So I think that is all I wanted to say about that, but thank you.
Thank you.
I bring paperwork not for you to necessarily read it with you now, or read it now, but you can take it with you if you decide to peruse it. All right, so what I've just passed out is a survey that I conducted. So as before, my name's Luke Abbott. I teach high school math. I also serve as a kind of billing representative for our teacher association. It is scary to come up as an employee in terms of, everyone in here is all friends with each other, but there's always this fear of, well, what if? So I wanted to help offload that from our teachers to just kind of get their perspective. But also, when this was presented to us a couple months back, the middle school, high school building is definitely extremely conflicted about this concept. I'd say some people are extremely against it. I don't think that that's an exaggeration. This one is just the raw data, and I have a commentary there on it. I'm not going to go through that data, but again, if you want to see, well, what questions did I actually ask from the licensed teachers in the middle school, high school, you can look at that later, see how many people responded one way or the other. And then the other page is just the bolded list of things I'm going to quickly share to the board now, because if I don't write it down, I'll rant and ramble all night. All right, so in general, after conducting my survey, as mentioned, the majority of our middle school, high school teachers do think that their professional development time could be used more effectively and does have some potential to improve academic achievement. So professional development is important. A notable number of teachers think that full day in-service would be more effective than the early release model that we have right now, which was included in the 4-day model. But it's not unanimous. There's people that disagree. That's going to happen. Teachers significantly agreed that better administrative planning and structure would lead to more effective PD, where there was a split on whether more days would increase professional development effectiveness. So some teachers would think that we're not currently using our current time to the best of our ability. If we add a whole bunch of extra days, is it just going to magically be so much productive? There's some skepticism on it. The originally proposed calendar for a 4-day week adds 8 professional development days. In my survey, when I asked the middle school, high school teachers how many days would be most effective, the median response was only 3 extra days. That's how they responded. This original calendar did not add any teacher contract days beyond the current calendar. So from August to May, teachers would be working the same amount of days. When surveyed, the teachers were not strongly opposed that maybe we add some extra contract days for the purpose of increasing professional development. Obviously, I don't want to be in here 300 days of the year, but some more might be an option. When asked about extending the school year, the responding teachers seem to prefer starting earlier in August, as if you're given 2 choices, starting earlier in August might be preferred to going a week later in May. The proposed calendar had a reduction of 8 student days. Speaking personally, that's my one bullet point. It's kind of my deal breaker. There's a strong pushback about reducing the number of student days in the calendar, especially in these amounts. I will fully acknowledge that I can teach better lessons. 100%, I need to teach better lessons. I don't think I can teach such better lessons that it makes up for 8 student contact days. The concept itself of a 4-day week is heavily split between the teachers. The responding teachers do not think that this aspect alone will sway academic learning much either way, in reference to 3-day weekends. Significant factors that should be considered include how students are prepared for after school by this change, such as some jobs work on a 4-day week, some jobs work on a 5-day week. They're going to school for 4 days in a week. Hard to convince them to go to a 5-day work, but not all teachers agree on that topic. Some made a note to say that, hey, I don't agree with that survey question. Also the effect on the families, as Angie mentioned. Not all teachers think that these changes are necessarily harmful, but no one really indicated that these would have a positive effect on academic learning in regards to 4 days and the effect on families. Overall, the responding teachers were heavily split on whether the proposed calendar would benefit academic outcomes. Many thought the proposal could help attract and retain teachers, but with the downside of some local families looking to take their students out of the school district, which would affect budget numbers. There are concerns about the timetable that this has progressed on and confidence in what the final plan would look like, especially in the short time until August if we would look to implement it this year. There's shaky confidence that 5 months from now we're going to have such an amazing plan in place. Questioning why are we jumping to this extreme option when a gradual adaptation, maybe we just edge it a little bit, just a couple of extra professional development days, a couple of extra days off, might help maximize effectiveness while minimizing some of the drawbacks. All right, that's all. Thank you.
I'm Andrea Berzer. I'm the counselor down at the grade school, as you guys know. I know that on this topic there's a lot of questions, a lot of different things to be discussed, and I think a lot of us have varying opinions, and some of us are very much on the line. I'm sure you guys are too. I know, along with what Luke has said, there's definitely some question about what those professional development days would look like. Before I go on too much, I want to add, the grade school does not have data that looks quite like that. We did meet and kind of get a general consensus. Generally so, our staff is more so in favor of a 4-day week. If we would have a PD day, as built in, as suggested, we would as well want it to be very structured and very intentional and very effective. And I think parents would want that too, you know. I can speak as a parent as well. What do we want for our kids? Do I just want a place for them to go for the week, or do I want the best education for them? Of course, we have dreams of our kids being whatever they're called to be, whether that's a trade or college education or whatever it is. You know, like that's obviously our goal. So when we look at this, it's definitely a different take on education, but there's changes that are coming. Melissa has worked really hard to kind of put some ideas in place of what this day could look like. So I want people to know that it's not just like, hey, here you go, and maybe we have had more discussion at the grade school, but to be clear, some things that you do have in front of you, well, maybe not from Luke's stuff, but from Melissa's stuff. During that day specifically of PD, teachers would have the opportunity to look very thoroughly at data. We look at data often, but it's just, there's not enough time to look at it with complete detail, to know how to read the data, to disaggregate the data, really like make individualized plans for children. And I know people are probably thinking, well, why isn't that happening now? And the reality of education is it's different than it was 10 years ago. I hope that you all know that. I speak from that with my heart, because it's very different than when I started. This job is not easy, neither are any of these jobs. We do the best that we can with what we have. As a parent, so I'm going to step into the other role. I am privileged to kind of know what this could look like, and I get excited as a parent that my kids could truly have the best education that they deserve. And I hope that whatever decision we come to, I hope that we can consider that respectfully. And that's all that I ask. I know that you guys have in front of you what this day could really look like, adding just a little bit more action plans that for individualized kids, like I said, using that time to look at data deeper, evaluating different curriculums, and how to best meet student needs. So, that's all.
Can I just ask one
Yes,
question?
ma'am.
We talked about looking at the data.
Yeah.
Where does it come from? I'm not a teacher, so
Right.
help me.
It's
understand.
actually, it's a lot of teacher talk, and so it can be very overwhelming. When we sit down with parents, it's very overwhelming. I haven't been in the classroom taking academic data for 8 years, but as the leader of the SIT team, I get to see data. Melissa's our data gal, so she gets a really deep look. I mean, the data is insane at how precise it measures. So reading, math, and then we have a whole other realm that does involve me, which is data for SEL, social emotional needs. Not only that data, but like so many of our decisions, your decisions, are driven off of our state assessments. And there's a whole lot of speculation there too, of course. The conversation is we want our data to look better. We want our state assessments to look better. So at the end of the day, like, what are we gonna do to make that happen? So.
And I know you're not middle school, high school, but does your data look different than middle school, high school? Because I know Mrs. Coleman talked a little bit about.
Like the collection of data looks different.
We collect the same data as far as we did start doing Ames Web this year, which kind of is something that the grade school only has done in the past, but the state has now moved that up to middle school as well, which it measures reading and math primarily, and then which benchmarks. Then testing for state assessments, and then our teachers are able to do the interim state assessments as well, which they look at to see where their kids are currently at before state assessments. And then also ACT, freshmen take the pre-ACT here, and then juniors take the quote-unquote real ACT. It does count for a national score, and then so those are some of the data points that we look at as far as placing kids. And then of course for special education, a whole set of different data that teachers are included with because of classroom inclusion and modification of assignments and differentiation and things like that. So what my concern, and I know this isn't supposed to be a back and forth, but what you have in front of you is not what any of us have seen at the 7 through 12 building, as far as like, what does the actual structure of a PD, one of these Mondays, look like?
Trust me, I'm asking for that specific reason. I want to know as a school board member.
Yeah, we don't have it either.
What is the date, I mean, what?
That's why we are reluctant. I think our staff in general is just a little reluctant, because it's like, it feels like we're not being shared all the information. And we already have PD days, and we know what those look like, and we have early releases, and just in general, we have a lot of concern. How much better can we utilize them, and should we utilize things that we already have, the time we already do have, in a little different way maybe? I don't know, but I would like to see a plan, but.
And I maybe think that this week we all jumped into this, and then we got lots of opinions stirred around, and maybe we all need to sit down and have more discussion and conversation, respectfully so, because we all have very valued opinions. There needs to be more. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't go to watch anymore, so I'm not exactly sure what time it is. But I thank you all for staying so late. And thank you again for the opportunity to let everyone have an opportunity to share their concerns. Madam President, I see you taking lots of notes, and it makes my heart feel good. So, as you will remember, my name is Stephanie Joyner. I have 3 children in this district.
one at the high school, 2 that will be joining once they complete at St. Joseph in the day-to-day at the school. And I presented in February because we started to hear information that this was going to be presented, that this was going to be imminently voted upon. And I wanted to make sure that there was some voice that said we need to slow down and we need to stop because we need to know what's going to work and not work. And it felt very much like we were not aware of those pieces. Since I presented in February, I have been really quite blown away by the number of people that have contacted me and thanked me for speaking at that first meeting and bringing it forward. And that has come from school employees, teachers, staff, people at the grocery store, someone in the bathroom. I mean, it has been in all walks. And every single person that has come to me, nobody has said, I think this is a great idea. Nobody has said that. Have I had some that have said, oh, I'm not really concerned, or, you know, my kids will be fine. But I think we have to look beyond my kids and remember why we're here for a public school setting. We are here for the greater good and for the betterment of all. Of the community members and of the parents, as I mentioned, that spoke to me, there was a lot of shock and frustration. Again, complete unawareness and concern. Some of the school employees that I spoke to after the board meeting had really indicated to me, oh, we think this is a done deal. They already said it's happening. And so it was really this kind of feeling, this need to make sure that we spoke up because it does need, Andrew, you make a great point. I mean, that it needs to be fully conversed and thought about, and we really want to have that happen and do not wish to have that rush through. So many concerns have not yet been answered. So many concerns have not been addressed. So what I want to kind of hit on some of those things that I've heard, some of the things I've learned more about, some of the concerns that I still believe exist and have not been addressed. So one of those is that I know that there's this worry, this feel that we can use data as we want or we can address the research as we want and make it fit our personal needs, and I don't disagree with that statement. However, I still want to make sure that I see the data that supports this as improving academic achievements. I've seen a lot of null values, and so if I'm seeing only null values, then I need to look at other data points. I need to consider the other ramifications. So other things that have come to my attention was like the hospital shared today, is concern around business and industry. If we're trying to bring new people into our community, if we are trying to hire new employees, if we are trying to start new industries, that infrastructure is extraordinarily important. A vibrant, active, engaging, growing school is super important. And to cut back on a day or to cut on some of these other programs that we've already talked about certainly then does not show that vibrancy. And so it's very easy for someone to choose to go to a different town even if they're going to try to work in our district. We don't want to lose those people, and we don't want to lose those opportunities. Additionally, concerns that have been expressed by employees is just that culture of work. I think, as we mentioned, yeah, we would all love to only work part-time the rest of our lives and still make all the same money. It would be lovely, 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 lovely. And I don't think that's what this is about. I really don't think that this change has anything to do with about giving our school employees less work time. I don't think that's what it is. But what I think it affects is the culture in which we raise our children and the culture in which they get accustomed to only working 4 days a week, to only going to items part-time, right? It is about that culture that we want to make sure that we have this conversation with our kids regularly. You agreed, you committed. So we're going to do what is asked of us. We are tired, we don't want to go to work today, but that's our job and that's what we do. We get up and go. And we try to make the world better and we try to make our community better by committing every single day to that process and that plan. The other pieces that I think we also need to consider are access to care. We currently have, give or take, around 200 students at the grade school level. And that's an interesting data point because those are the ones that are going to need care when mom and dad are still at work. Now, not the entire grade school building, but a good portion of them. In Ellenwood, we have only 79 licensed spaces for childcare. 79. Most of those are currently spoken for. And in order for our childcare providers to make a living and provide the childcare they do provide, they have rules about how many children at which age group, so they can maintain that balance. So we don't have the access for childcare for these students who will now be kindergarten, second grade, whose parents ostensibly will need to work on a Monday and can't stay home with them. Additionally, when we look at how do we increase that, the same problem we have with part-time childcare. Early childhood education is not a moneymaker. And so when we try to get someone to work part-time in those roles, we're not gonna have someone who's available to work for us in a licensed setting that's going to be able to do it only on Mondays. We lose access to childcare again there. Additionally, I know that you guys have looked at these statistics as well, but roughly 44% of our district students are classified as economically disadvantaged. So the support resources that have been brought up can't be ignored, right? Our daily access to these items for these students is hugely impactful. I didn't know that statistic about our kindergarten students, and most of them are not free and reduced lunch this year, right? But as you pointed out, that's an anomaly that we can't predict. The reality is that we have many children that use our free breakfast, that use our free lunch, that over the summer continue to come get free meals from the district when we partner with those programs. And so to take that access away, that doesn't speak to access to mental health resources that we provide at this district. It doesn't speak to any of the daily support and learning that they get, the singular teacher that asks them how they're doing and what's going on. 2 of the school districts visited spoke to the importance of those mentoring programs they provide. That is an add-on. That's a benefit. That's a builder, not a takeaway. And we really don't want to take away access to those opportunities for our students. I do not have specifics on this particular data point, and I would like for the district to consider it as well. And the reason I don't have specifics is because of student privacy. I don't know how many of our students in this district are have learning disadvantages and need that additional support for learning. I appreciate very much the parents that were willing to speak up and to put that in front of a very public setting, that their child is someone who has those learning needs. But I can tell you the parents that spoke to me personally pointed out the disruption in the daily, the disruption in the pattern, the disruption in the schedule that only going to school 4 days a week creates, that exacerbates some of those problems. It removes that consistency for their schedule again. Additionally, the other piece of that is if we're not adding consistent time and we're seeing learning loss or instructional loss on our core subjects, the ability to do that at home without the academic resources then increases as well. So my degree is in English. My kids are going to be able to place commas, but that's because that's something that I know. But if my kids are coming home and they have trouble in their chemistry class, that was not my subject, right? And I'm not trained to help them with that piece, and I know that. I rely very much on the school to support in those areas where I don't have that training. Again, another data piece that I think we also want to look at are the mental health impacts and the access to mental health services. I won't know that number. I won't know how many of our students receive counseling on a regular basis from our in-school resources. Nor do I know the effects, and I'll be honest, I didn't even look for a study on it because I didn't have our numbers. But I don't know what the impact might be on students who are isolated from those resources or from their peers on another day of the week, right? We talk about the lifeblood of a community when a school shutters and how that really pulls a lot of that lifeblood out of a community. This is on a smaller scale, right? 1 day a week, that lack of access for those kids that need that. I also want to really now also speak to culture. I'm not from Ellenwood. I grew up in a much larger community in a whole nother state. And there was a steep learning curve for me to the culture in Ellenwood. But I will tell you this, from the onset, the things that stood out to me is this is a community that cares about its community. It's a community that pitches in and welcomed me with open arms. Additionally, it's a community of hard workers. When I think of the men and women in the oil field, and I think of our farmers, those working in agriculture, and I think of the weather in the last month. They don't get an option to take that day off, right? We're out there and that's when we're putting our nose to the grindstone. Things are hard. Things are not growing weight with our scores. So we need to really buckle down and get back in there and lean on that culture of hard work and commitment to our students and our community. And we need to find a solution that fosters that excellence of our community, that expounds on it. I keep hearing, today in particular, in the last couple of meetings, enrollment is everything, enrollment is everything. Let's take this as an option to be a beacon in the county, to be a beacon in the state, right? To be able to say, look what we were able to do, and look how we came together. I think we look at the number of people in this room who came today who said, I care, I'm here. And I think what the other piece that I've heard since this last month is the concerns expressed about how to manage it. How do we manage all of the struggles and layers and levels? And I do think there are differences between buildings and age groups. I absolutely hear that. But you have a room of people who signed a sheet of paper when they arrived saying they care and saying they want to be a part of a solution. They're saying they do not want something else taken away. They want to add to. They want to add to your schools. They want to add to your programming. They want to add to your support. I can reach out all day long and I can tell you all the opportunities that I have available through different programs at Barton, the communications I've had there, but I need to be asked to the table. I need to be asked to be a part of that committee that is working with you. And I absolutely believe that list that is back there that we all signed up for, you have a committee. You have people who have made suggestions for creative solutions. You have people who have knowledge and connections to other instructors, practices of assessing student learning, practices of applying immediate changes in the classroom to address an identified need that came up when that worksheet came back in. We have the people who want to be here and help. We have heard the call. We have heard the fears, the concerns, and we're ready to buckle down and do it with you. And what we are asking is that we continue to focus on what more we can provide our students instead of what less. Losing that day is not going to be beneficial long-term for those kids. We don't see that. We don't see incremental impacts. And I fear it's going to affect our enrollment. I fear it's going to affect our achievement scores even more. And I'm not willing to take that gamble. When we have a student who is willing to stand up here and speak and willing to say at that young age what's important to him, I want to build in, I want to knuckle down, and I want to help him get those things. And so I said it before and I will say it again. I am here. I am ready to sit in. I am ready to have all the conversations. I'm ready to identify the problems and create solutions. And you have a community of people behind you that want to be a part of the solution. A couple other last notes that I want to point out here. The word consistency has been said multiple times today, multiple times. And I think that is really what the biggest piece of maintaining that 5-day school week is about, maintaining consistency. Additionally, I would like to say, I heard a couple of other notes, something about working behind the scenes and that fear of not knowing what's coming and what's not coming. But I do think that has truly been what has felt so concerning and abrasive in this process, is that behind the scenes feeling that came with this discussion and this decision. And so again, when we have this very robust group of community members who are saying they want to be a part of it, let them be a part of it. Let them be in the mix of it. Let them know the fears, the concerns, the questions. Let them be a part of it so they can help. The other thing I want to point out, our foundation
my student, I don't see Larry, I think Larry had to leave. Oh, no, there he is, back there, he's standing up. My daughter had a benefit, 2 of my daughters had benefit on the cleaning and repair of their trumpets this year. And that was phenomenal, because again, I don't have a musical bone in my body. I have rhythm, but I cannot sing, I cannot play an instrument, it's not my skill set. And so, you know, I kind of go back and I think, how do we better partner to support some of these areas of need, much like that was, to address those concerns for those who can't. What opportunities does Barton have? You know, I'm not speaking for Barton here tonight, but I can promise you, we have the opportunities. We have the opportunities for art, we have the opportunities for music, we have the opportunities to support assessment practices. We have those opportunities and we want so much to partner, Barton does. So let us into that conversation. Let the people in your community who have access to those resources help you along the way. And then the very last thing that I really want to point out. As we lose enrollment, we have to make decisions. But what if we made decisions that continue to attract new families, new students to our school? What if we focused on the decisions that added to our educational opportunities instead of those that pulled away? The enrollment cliff is a super real thing. It affects me at my work, right? I know that. But what we want to do is make sure we are following our mission to provide excellence to our students. That we are providing the most excellent package so that, again, we can address that enrollment number as best as we can. And I did forget one last thing that I wanted to point out. Ooh, sorry, speaking about work. I work with students out at the college who are often underprepared for the academic rigors of college. They struggle in math, they struggle in English. Those are the 2 areas that I work with most often, other than our ESL learners. And when we work with them, the first intervention we make, the high impact practice that we put in front of them is the daily attention on their subject, the daily attention on process, how we're studying, and the daily attention to developing those academic skills. We add more time. We never take time away. We add more time. In fact, our new model for providing remediation to students who are not prepared for math, who are not prepared to English, is to add 2 more days to their course schedule so that we see them more consistently and develop those skills more consistently. That daily process, routine, structure, devoted attention, attendance, and engagement. It impacts learning. It impacts their ability to meet their educational and their personal goals. Those are the things we want to foster and support. So please call us to the table. Let's see what we can add to make this better, and let's see how we can grow and improve as opposed to remove items that are so necessary and important. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Out of the box ideas, what do we add to be successful? I mean, you said let's add to be successful instead of taking away.
So,
and just briefly, but
yeah,
just,
no, I mean,
there's
there's multiple pieces that we can look at. So, when I'm looking at remediation of math and English skills, a lot of what we have to teach our students is the how-to of being a student, right? And grit is probably the hardest thing to measure on an individual human basis. So it's about implementing some of those processes in a very meaningful and purposeful way. And so even some training on that piece. I think the mentoring ideas, coaching of students, huge impacts on the college level in retention and completion. Also, identification of what student goals are so that they remain engaged in those pieces. So I think a mentoring program, you got a room full of mentors right here, I think is a great opportunity. And then additionally, I think we could do some really developed practices on assessing, so those data points, helping teachers identify those data points in the class and making real-time decisions, helping them to not have to learn how to disaggregate the data, but to take the data that's given to them and immediately make changes. we have practices that can do that. So if we can implement some of those things, again, using our resources and experts in the area, I think you can make some really strong changes. And I think that, I'm gonna say, I have a whole bunch of ideas now all of a sudden, but I would say the fact again, that there's so many people in this room saying we are committed to helping, we are committed to being a part, you've got your volunteer pool. I've got internship dollars to pay for people who wanna help with art. I have it. So if you have volunteers, I can help connect them to money. I would love to be a part of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Sure. I don't want to cut in front of you, Spencer. I'm Melody Johnston. I know most of you. I am a fifth grade teacher at the grade school, and this is a little bit hard for me because I'm much more used to speaking to 10 and 11-year-olds than adults. But I have been sitting here listening to everyone's ideas, and I understand where everybody's coming from. Teaching is hard. I've been doing this for 25 years now. Our students are getting more and more challenging. Right now, with the range of students that Mrs. Billinger and I teach, we have 28 students. Between those 28 students, we have reading levels from second grade to 10th grade. We have students with mental health issues that are identified, unidentified. We have students with ADHD. We have students with learning disabilities. We have students that are gifted. And those are the type of kiddos that we work with every day. It is really hard for me to sit and reach those students and give them what they need with the amount of time that I have. My planning period is 50 minutes a day. That's what I negotiated. I do not have time to look at their data. I do not have time to put them in the small groups that they need. And I'm a former special ed teacher. I know how to do that. I know how to look at the data. I know how to give kids what they need. I don't have the time to do that right now with what we have and what we're dealing with. I understand that a 4-day week, and I'm a parent. She's a senior, she's graduating. So I'm not on that aspect of having to find daycare and things like that. I understand that that's going to be a challenge. But I am speaking as a teacher. I want what's best for these kids, and right now I cannot give it to them. Something needs to change. Like Stephanie just said, I understand we probably are sending kids to college that are struggling without those skills. We have fifth graders who are adding on their fingers, who do not know their multiplication facts. And I will stand up for any of the teachers I work with at the grade school. It's not because of what they are doing. These kids are different. We need a chance to look at what they really need and give those kids some of those opportunities. We're very lucky with Mr. Cant. It is not about assessment scores. It's not about state assessment scores. But the information that Melissa has, we can't look at. We can't use it. And by, whether it's a 4-day week or not, however we decide to do it, we need more time to help those kids. We just don't have the time. And I feel I can't be the teacher that I know I could be with some of these kids. I know that I am failing some of my students. But again, it's just give and take, and it's we do with what we have. Thank you.
I'll make this brief because I know mine can only absorb what the posterior can absorb. I've been a chair for a long time, and I appreciate that. Again, thank you. I appreciate everything you guys do. Just like I said when I was up here last time, there are a lot of negative stuff. I don't want to go drawbacks to all this. I don't want to go over stuff that Stephanie's talked about and that people talked about. We know child care, kids, travel situations is very different. We know when it comes to the grade school versus the high school, the same approach, maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all. Whatever the solution may look like, I think we can maybe see a little bit today that it could be different for one school versus the other. I hear a lot of talk about professional development days. It reminds me a lot of the days of the Affordable Care Act when Congress said, pass it, then we can tell you what's in it. Okay? I know we don't know what it looks like. I hear a lot of talk about wanting to do this, but no one can tell us really what it is. So I encourage you to really step back and think about this. What does this look like before any decisions are made? I mean, how does this improve scores? When we're taking kids out of school and having less hours, how does this help? How do we take a day out of their schedule? How does this help? Who's this for? Is it for the kids? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's some hard questions that got to be asked here. I want these teachers to be able to have a more efficient way to help these kids. We already have a ton of in-service days, early release days, and it goes on and on. We have a ton compared to when I was in school. I don't know what we do with these days. Is there a way we can use them better? I don't know. These are all questions that we've got to ask ourselves. Less class time is just not effective for a lot of students. I better leave that out. Talk to your kids. I was up here earlier, talk to your kids. Talk to your high school kids. It's a little tougher to kind of wade through the grade school kids, understand it. But let's just talk about high school. There's a lot of problems. There's discipline issues, there's disruptive things going on. Kids walk out of classes. If you don't believe me, go ask the students. It happens all the time. Let's fix some of these problems first. This is very disturbing. There was a lot of this that did not come to the light of day for me until a week ago. I spent time with 5 high school kids, stood in my garage and talked, and my jaw was on the floor about the things they were telling me, of the culture. We keep talking about the culture of the school and the things going on. It's not good. It's not good. Talk to your students. I would be glad to share it with anybody, and this is not the time or place. But there's things going on in this school that are not productive to learning. They're not productive to the classroom environment. It's not productive for the respect of good teachers. Mr. Abbott is a great teacher. Larry Drees he moved. Mr. Drees, I called him Larry Drees. I called him Mr. Drees, I still do, all the time. Once in a while I'll slip up and call him Larry Drees, but he was a good teacher back in the day. These students respected him. There's discipline issues, there's culture issues. We can talk about all these professional development days, we can talk about all these days off and all these things. And I think it's a good discussion to have. But let's fix some of these really deep-seated problems in the school. And then I think some things will probably start to fall in place. If you don't believe me, I spoke to one student that now is a little different than when I was in school. You can actually leave a class that you're in if your work is done. And you can go to another class where you can, sometimes that's allowed, to where you can go do work or do things, activities in other classes, providing it works out for the teacher. Students are not challenged here. I had the student tell me that he was not allowed, his work was done. He's a 4.0 student. He was not allowed to go to another class. He was just told to sit there. So this student proceeded to watch Smoking the Bandit on his iPad. Again, I'm not going to tell you who that student is right now. If you'd like to know, I could tell you. But is this what we're paying for? Is this what?
My high schooler says the same thing.
Is this what we? I mean, when I talk about these problems, I'm like Stephanie. I want to help. I want to be part of the solution. If someone wants me to, great. I just want you guys to dig down to your students, talk to your students, because there's a lot of stuff going on that I just don't think you know about. And believe me, I encourage you guys to please go see your students. It seems like we're treating a lot of symptoms, but we're not cutting out the disease, the problems where this is starting. I want these teachers to come to work and feel respected by their students. I want these students to come to school and feel like they're being treated fairly and that their teachers are helping to educate them. It's a two-way street all day long. And these teachers have a very hard job, and there's some things to be fixed here. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hi there. Many of you don't know me. My name is Ashley Davis, and I moved here from Arizona about 4 years ago. I have 4 kids, all under 9 years old. So 4th grade, 2nd grade, kindergarten, and pre-K 3. We moved here from Arizona because we heard such great things about the school. I have family here. I would come out and visit as a kid, and that was one of the deciding factors for us on why we moved. With that said, change is scary. I'm one of the ones to know it, but after I moved here, my school district in Arizona went to the 4-day school week. It's a lot different than what was proposed because it's not either or on the short summer or the short week. I am used to school going until the week before Memorial Day and starting the very last week of July. That's just what I'm used to. I moved here, I'm like, what do you mean we don't have 2 weeks of fall break or 2 weeks of spring break? But reaching out and talking to some friends and coworkers in Arizona that have had this change, there's obviously things both sides have said, more discussions need to be placed, better planning enforced. I have 2 kids on IEPs. One was for math and reading and the other was speech. So of course, from a parent standpoint, that is very scary to me. Now, they were on IEPs in Arizona to where I missed this change. So I've reached out and I've asked, how has it worked at that school district? And majority of the people I've talked to said if your kids are older, it's fantastic. There's more homework, which so far I haven't had homework with my grade schoolers. But there are opportunities for tutoring. On that Friday or Monday where there's no students, that's when tutoring for the children that need additional one-on-one can take place. They also have tutoring before school and after school on those other 4 days. So before we make a change, I would like to see what options are there for children who are having struggles and difficulties. Obviously, both middle school and elementary school are seeing that, or concerned about these students, of course, and I feel like before any decision is made, though, that needs to be kind of zoned in on. I don't want to say I'm for it or against it. I'm fine either way. But if we did do the 4-day school week, I would recommend the shorter summer. Because my kids do struggle that first month back into school, getting back into the habit. My kids are the COVID kids, to where I feel like every year they are behind because they missed that initial year of COVID when schools are closed down and so forth. So I feel like even to this day, teachers are still having to play catch up, like Ms. Johnson said over there, play catch up because children did not get it at that appropriate age level with growing, and there's still, and maybe there's other issues there, but they are still having that ongoing issue. But I feel like if they're able to identify it and maybe have the tutoring in place or that extra one-on-one time, that would be ideal. The high school level, the ones in Arizona, my friends had told me that high school actually is a different time frame than elementary school. They are in school probably for another 45 minutes to an hour longer than grade school is. Is that an option here? Possibly, to where they still make their hours and have more time. But both sides, the fallback is the babysitting, the daycare options for the parents that have to work, because as we all know, the economy nowadays, it's not one parent staying at home. But the daycare is the primary concern in any place. So I just wanted to put that out there. Have a good night. Thank you.
Well, many of you have said this already. I want to echo it. We have a community that cares. Like, hearing all of your stories, hearing your input, your feedback is very valuable to us. So thank you for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. I do want to, before we get into conversations, address just one piece, and I think it's maybe slightly irrelevant now because we're here. This conversation started with the board probably a year ago in November after a KASB conference. That's our Kansas Association of School Boards. We attend every year. I believe it was you, John, that went to a session that, yeah, it's all John's fault, guys. No, attended a session that focused on some really impressive turnarounds and assessment scores, and not just assessment, but achievement of our students. And I hate that we keep using the word assessments. Let's think about achievements of our students. And so that is something that we as a board have discussed many times over as something that we struggle with. We don't have a lot of, I'm just gonna say pride in, like we do good, but we know we can do better, so how do we get there? And that's that gap that we're trying to look at. So we started exploring options. We asked specifically our leadership to start looking into some of these districts that shared at that time, so that we could see what they did. Let's learn from people that have gone outside the mold and see if we can explore any of those options for us. There has not been a point in time yet where we've had a recommendation come forward or where we have decided that we're going forward with something. So I do want to put some of that at ease if there is unrest that this was secretly being done. These have all been discussions in open meeting. We want to have these discussions. We want you all involved, so please come and listen. But I did want to just share that perspective that we absolutely want your input, and this is not something that we would have stuck by. Before we get into survey information, because I do want us to look at survey information, you don't have anything else you want to speak to, or?
No, just maybe to repeat a little bit what you said. There's certain schools that were across the state that have done better than average. You know, say we want to go out and find out what their magic sauce is. And so we found some schools that were close to us, but close to us in size and stuff, and not maybe in the far corner of the state. And we had admin go out and look at them. And we never thought everything was going to be out there, but it was, hey, what are they doing that we can maybe bring in here and help us? We went to Comanche County, Ingalls, or our admin did, Comanche County, Ingalls, and here Hillsborough. It just so happened that Ingalls and Comanche County on 4-day-a-week and Hillsborough was 5. And so we said, well, what's happening in 4 days? And so, I mean, that's the start of it. And I appreciate, you know, folks in the community just in general. That's a big change, and all of a sudden you hear about it. But as has been explained, it's not a big plot. It was just, hey, was this something that can help us or not? And you know, you can just look around the board and think if any of us are going to do things that are rash or unreasonable, then vote for somebody else. But I think you got good board members here, and they're going to be reasonable about it.
John, just because I'm unfamiliar with those districts, what size are those districts? Are they similar in size, or are they like?
Yeah, that's in fact. I mean, there's bigger schools that have good scores, and smaller schools that have good scores. But like these in particular, Comanche County, Ingalls, and Hillsborough, they're all close to us.
They're all close.
That was one of the criteria to decide what schools we're going to look at.
Do you want to discuss survey results? Okay. Mr. Jacobs, can you take us through some of the survey?
Sure. You want me to start with the parent survey?
Yes, please.
Obviously, I printed out the results, and as far as some takeaways here, I don't want to go through all of them, but I've jotted down 5 things that I think were kind of common themes that probably need to be addressed by the board. And again, this is the parent-family survey. We issued 2 surveys, parent-family, and then a patron survey. One thing that really stood out for me is the highest priority for the parents was preparation for the future. I think, and again, too, we can find these how we wish, but ultimately, I think our parents and families said we want our kids to be prepared for whatever the next level is, whether it's the next grade level, whether it's post-secondary, the career, going out into the world, we want them to be successful. And I think that's something that, when you look at the data here, it's abundantly obvious. I mean, the blue bar that says most important is by far the most significant, and that really stood out for me. Ultimately, when you start looking at some of these other things, culture and environment, and then not that they're mutually exclusive, you like to think you'll be able to do multiple ones, but extracurricular opportunities, academic achievement, citizenship scores. The fact that they said, we want them to be ready for their future, I think really kind of gives us some guidance on, you know, how we at least begin to move forward. The second thing that stood out to me was there was not much dissatisfaction with assessment score and student achievement, at least for their own child. So I was maybe, and I don't want to lead in with anything here, but I thought, I was a little bit surprised by that. I thought we might get a little bit more blowback. So again, you know, in looking at the data from that item, for their own kids, parents weren't overly concerned about assessment scores and student achievement. Now again, too, we can ask 100 different people what that means, you'll get 100 different perspectives, but you know, maybe we need to kind of dissect that a little bit more, and you know, maybe that does shift our priority a little bit. I know we have talked a little bit about student achievement and assessment scores, and those are loaded terms anyway, we all know that. But again, for the average parent who responded to this survey, they said, I'm not overly dissatisfied with how they're achieving academically. The third point that stood out, and this is obviously what everyone's waiting on, there was very little support for either the 4-day week or year-round school, relatively speaking. We did have some that were in the extremely for it category, but it wasn't much. It was mostly, I believe it was, we're right at about 50% right there. It was 52.6% that were extremely against it. We did have almost 17 point, almost 18% that were extremely in favor of it. The rest were very negligible, and then we did have a little over half that were extremely against it. And then it was essentially the same for year-round school. So I thought that was something that kind of caught my eye. And I'm I'm not going to talk about the comments in that comments. I'm not allowed to release your personally identifiable information. But I am going to try to tie the narrative together as well to kind of give you an idea. But ultimately, all the commentary was, you know, childcare, not being able to create a known structure yet. A lot of the unknown, but ultimately, again, a little support for either 4-day week or year-round school. The fourth thing that caught my attention was there was significant support for the mentoring program. That was overwhelming. I think we had, let's see, you're doing a little back of the napkin math here. 7.6% that were combined somewhat against it or extremely against it. So, you know, again, a lot, you know, basically 93% that were neutral or for it. So I feel like that's something that again, gives us some direction moving forward. And I always like doing this because this kind of speaks to priorities of the district, and of course, everyone's going to look at it through their own lens. But I think what stood out to me a little bit was the fact that class size at the grade school is very important. That is something that, and in the commentary, even when you get to it, I'm not going to get to all the comments about what the district does well, but small class size was something that really stood out, and I think that was a repetitive theme and something that, you know, potentially could guide us as well. So though on the parent survey, those were the items that captured my attention. Would you prefer me to go to the patron survey, or do you want to go to the parent survey around the table?
I think we need to talk about the parent survey.
Okay.
So I think that is very strong for us to ignore. It seems that for the most part, everybody that has spoke today is extremely against a 4-day school week, the majority. Parents, and I'll be honest, my AirPods died several times over the last week because of all of the people that I've talked to. One thing I can say is that I am concerned that we do not have a clear picture of what it actually looks like. In my mind, I have one thought. I bet Whitney has maybe a different thought. We literally have not developed this enough to even be knowledgeable about it. Again, as Whitney said, we've We've talked about this because we wanted to find some creative ideas out of the box. What can we do? What helps our students? What's best for USD 355? We don't have the details. So we put a survey out, we all agreed that that was a good thing to do. We come back with 52% that don't want it, but of those people that say they don't want it or they do want it, do they really understand it? That's where I'm concerned. I know last month at our board meeting, my suggestion was we need to get a committee together with stakeholders. And I still think that we need, I'm not saying I'm for or against a 4-day week, because I don't think that I have enough data to say I know what we're doing. But I still think that we need to get a committee together because I think there's some opportunities there that we could look at. For a 4-day week, outside of a 4-day week, whatever that looks like. But I really want to be a part of that. I'm just like some of the people that have come up here that have said, I want to be a part of it. I don't think that any of us school board members, would say that we don't want to be a part of it because that's what we're here for. But let's get some community members, some stakeholders, some educators, people that have some good ideas, and let's brainstorm this. I think that's the only way that we can then get the word out as to what this actually maybe could look like. And I'll be honest, I don't know that this is something that could or should be implemented for the next school year. I think that some people think that it's a great idea, let's move forward fast and furious, because maybe some people are ahead of the game a little bit, because it sounds like our grade school's at a different spot than our high school is. I think we need to tap the brakes just a bit, get a committee together, and look at some different data, and make a better plan to look at. And once you have that committee and you have stakeholders from the community, you have your representatives from the school boards, you have your representatives from the education part of things, you have parents involved, you have community members, then we can say it's been a collective idea and we all want to move forward with it. That is just my personal opinion, so I'm throwing it out there.
Are you talking about exploring the 4-day work
The
week,
4-day I
the
think
work week,
I think
4-day
that's-
school week idea,
I
or
think
you?
that's where it starts. I think
Okay.
that's where it starts, because that's where we have seen some interesting stuff that nobody really knows exactly what that looks like. So I think it starts with that, and then it morphs into, who knows, I don't know. But I think it starts with the 4-day week, because we have to have some structure about what we're talking about.
I think I'm maybe a bit, no, I'll just say, I'm not at a point where I'm confident that a 4-day week would be something that I would support. I have heard from the discussions in the survey there and the teacher information, there's a couple of different parallels that I think we absolutely need to address. And I'm thinking along the lines of, we hear from our teachers that they, and Mr. Jacobs, you've been a big voice of this since we started this exploration, and the light bulb came on, that we don't have enough time for our teachers to prepare and plan and do professional development. And maybe we do need to look at some of that professional development and what that would look like. Not maybe, we should look at that. But then on the other side, hearing from, I've had some personal conversations with community members as well, and hearing that, they've done everything in their resource capabilities to explore and learn about their kids' needs and trying to provide that information to teachers, and teachers just don't do anything with it. And as we just heard, it's because you don't have time for it. Those are parallel to me. Like, we have a problem we've identified on both sides, but they're the same problem. We're just looking at them in different lenses. And so we need to, I think, absolutely address opportunities we can give our teachers to plan and prepare and meet our students where they're at. I don't think that needs to be additional full days into the calendar necessarily, but, you know, if there's options to, I mean, you can get, I don't wanna sit here and start tossing out ideas. We have a room of capable people that we employ to start thinking about what would meet your needs in that respect. Because you know the scheduling, you know everything far better than I could ever dream of talking to. But I'm just pleading, you know, get creative, and I like the idea of having some kind of committee to speak into it. I do think we need to rely heavily on the expertise in the room and in our buildings to really own the decisions and the conversations around what comes forward, maybe as a recommendation, because they know the intricacies far better than anyone else could. Those are the things that I'm sitting here thinking about as I'm listening, and I just have to say again, I'm just very grateful for the voices that have come forward, for community members that are here. It takes courage to speak up at any point in a conversation, especially when you don't know other people in the room, so I just want to say thank you again.
Just in general, you know, the survey, my hope is that it gave folks a chance to give input to us. You know, as has been talked about, we need input from everybody, so I hope that served the purpose. You know, at least as I read it personally, I think I received input and ideas and thoughts. It has some measures of what priorities are for the population as a whole, so I'm grateful for everyone's efforts to come here and talk, and also to fill out the survey and give us input.
Can you tell us how many completed the survey that you're
I think
pulling
we
from?
had 78%
On the
Yeah.
parent survey.
78. That's of the parent survey.
That's why I was just curious is what your percentage was from.
Yep.
I don't know that we have enough information necessarily to move forward on a decision right now, but I've been around 4-day school weeks. Wasn't the community I was in, but next door was, and the parents hated the idea until it was the second or third year, then they thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and they probably would have strung up the school board if they went back to a 5-day. I did go to a private school and have some friends that their kids go to a private school, and I went to 4.5 days, and the half day was kind of irrelevant, so basically it was kind of like a 4-day school week, and test scores there were fairly high. So I can't say that I'm against it. There's just, I guess my biggest thing is, I have friends and family that are teachers, and they usually say that personal development days are the biggest waste of time, and nothing ever gets done. And if we're just gonna have 2 extra days of those a month, I would not be in favor of it. And I'm hoping that if we go that route, whatever we do, that the personal development days are actually beneficial and not just a waste of time. And that's not from any of the teachers that are in here, so I'm not throwing any of them under the bus, but family and friends that I've known for years, whenever they have PD days, they're like, this is usually a waste of my day. I have things that I could be doing that would be constructive in my classroom, but I don't get to because I gotta do this, and I would hate to see that, just more of that.
And I could be thinking about this wrong, but part of what's being presented as opportunities to actually, not professional development, but plan, right? So we're, okay, so thank you, I just wanted to make sure I was tracking.
Well, been on the board a long time, probably too long. But I would have to say tonight's meeting was probably the most informative meeting we've had in here since I've been on the board. I feel like we're way behind. We should have had this meeting 4 or 5 years ago. The scores have been dropping. Our teachers, in the grade school particularly, they are firing warning shots at us. Help! We've got to find a solution to this problem. They don't have the time. They have to deal with a lot of different issues. I applaud them for at least looking for a solution. Whether it's the right solution or not, that's yet to be determined. but it's brought forth this discussion, and we've learned new things about our school and community tonight. I'm kind of excited the possibility of partnering with Barton. How we could use that to improve our education, and wouldn't it be cool, Ellenwood District partners with Barton College to improve education in Ellenwood? That would be, if I was moving to a community, I'd be pretty excited about a community college reaching out and partnering with the local school. We pay a lot of money for that school, right? We hear that every year. Every year. Especially when we pay our taxes, right? It's a tough job. Teachers have a tough job. And, I have to kind of be careful how I word this a little bit. But, I could not do their job. When I first heard this 4-day plan, I can tell you the very first thing I thought about was not with helping my wife. It was about the children. And from what I see in my line of work, I worry about kids. I worry, and I know some families it wouldn't be a factor. They can absorb financial and the time. There's some kids don't have that luxury. And that really burns a hole in the heart. So that's one thing that weighs heavily on me, because I know some kids, this school is their life. And I worry about that. So it's something that we have to consider in the whole scheme of this whole endeavor to improve our school. And I thank you everyone for coming here. Thank you teachers. We don't thank you enough. We don't hear from you enough. It was really great to have you here talking to us tonight. I know I have the luxury of being talked to a lot by teachers. But it really means a lot to us when we hear. And I really like the idea of talking to kids. I really think part of this should be with them directly to see what we can do with it. I hope this is the start of something to get the excellence up in Ellenwood. We make the best of the situation, no matter what it is. It's not going to be easy, so we need you to stay engaged, all of you. And that's all I'm going to say before I say something wrong.
I just have one question. The survey stuff seems to be really intriguing to some people. Could you break down like how many patrons and how many parents from that 78, or even the possibility of maybe like I know you can't put private stuff out there, but some sort of like collection of data out there for people to see?
Sure.
I don't know.
If there's 78 responses from the parent-family survey, that alone.
Oh, the 78 was just parents.
Just parents, we haven't talked about the patron.
Okay.
And then the patron winning, what was that?
About 35.
35.
I just think maybe that some of that data might be
Sure.
good for people to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's open record.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is gonna have to be redacted.
Yeah.
Some of the comments were not appropriate. Occupational hazard.
So what I'm hearing, what I'm coming away with here is that we as a board, and I think as a community group, we can do better, we can find a way to do better. We want to explore options, we want to engage, we want to have those conversations. May not be implemented immediately, and that's great. Like, we should take our time, let's collaborate, let's do this together, let's come up with a solution that works, or that we're all at least comfortable with moving forward. I think you all have absolutely been heard, everyone, every opinion, every angle, and there's value in all of it. So I guess keep your creative hats on and keep thinking about it. If this isn't the option, which we're not saying it's not the option, so we haven't looked at that yet, but if this isn't the option, what other options are out there? What can we think about? What can we do to improve? What can we, maybe on a less broad scale, if we're talking calendar specifically, adapt?
I have one last thing to say, and that's to the group of grade school teachers that are sitting over there. You guys have put a ton of time, thought, commitment into a solution for the kids. That has been heard very clearly. We hear you. There is a solution. Like I said, we just need to pump the brakes just a little bit to define it well enough so we are all on board and we know that we're going forward with the one that we all are in agreement on. We're just not quite there yet, and we've heard from our community and our parents what their thought is right now. And I don't serve on this board for what I want. I serve on this board for what our parents and our teachers want. And that's important to me. And the last thing I want to say is, most respectful group of people I have ever seen, thank you, thank you, thank you for being so respectful and so kind and giving us the information in that manner, because that speaks volumes to actually how much you feel about this, to be that respectful, so thank you.
Before we move on in any way, let's talk about the idea of a committee. You said you brought this up last month. And
Yes.
Okay, so what does that look like? What are thoughts on that? Mr. Jacobs, do you have thoughts on what that could?
Whatever you guys want.
Okay.
I think that there is merit to professional people that are both parents and stakeholders in education. I think the Barton, I am in total agreement with what Steve said. The Barton idea is just very intriguing. I would love if Stephanie Joyner would be a part of that. I think that there are other people out there, and basically, I think it's maybe Mr. Kent and Mrs. Eliason that say, we're gonna put this, not to add anything to either one of your plates, but maybe you could make a recommendation of something that makes sense.
And I think it's clear, especially from comments of the lack of information that's been maybe shared out. Because, I mean, honestly, we didn't have the formal anything coming forward.
No.
But we want communication to be free-flowing. We want ideas to be shared, communicated. Luke, what you did, taking initiative to get that information from our middle school, high school staff, thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it. I think we need to make sure we've got the balance there so that we can look at all angles. And it's not gonna, like we said, like it's not gonna maybe look the same middle school, high school as it would grade school. And I'm just noticing, like, we're really on the divide there, so it's not one side against the other, we're together. But it's just where you're sitting. So,
That's just my thought.
can you help us coordinate, get that group together? Obviously, you're interested.
Yes, I would be very interested.
I would be interested as well. I don't know, we can only have, what, 3?
No more than 3.
No more than 3. Any other takers that want to be?
Either things we do or not, you can ask them.
Yeah, okay.
Because then it becomes a board. I think having 2 board members is probably enough, but if we
Well, sounds good. Okay. So at this time, no action, we're moving forward with the committee. Okay.
Let's see, we're looking at the survey or anything else? or-
Oh, yeah, do we wanna go through the patron survey?
I don't know if
Is
it's much
that-
different or.
I apologize. I got focused on something
Yeah.
else. Yeah,
I'll jump in.
okay.
There's a third attachment that I attached, because I just went through the numbers, and it kind of summarizes on the graph a little bit of what we spoke about already. As talked about, there were 78 parent surveys, and I don't know how many school families we have. I mean, there's 400 students, so we probably have a couple hundred or something like that. So anyway, that gives you kind of an idea of the turnout, something maybe less than half. The patrons were 35, which were good, but of course, that's a pretty small representation of all the patrons across the whole district. Anyway, those last graphs that the school board members can look at was that, as Ben mentioned, that preparation for future opportunities were high importance. What this graph is, it was on the bottom scale, it was the number of respondees that marked 1 or 2 for preparation for future opportunities. So more important up to the right, less important to the left. And then the vertical scale is the be satisfied or dissatisfied. So that the number of people that have responded dissatisfied or satisfied, and the blue ones are the satisfaction rating, and the orange diamonds are the dissatisfied. And there's several of them to look at, but just as an example, like for the parent survey, lowest important was the extracurriculars. Was about 14 respondees said, hey, those are the most important. So that was low. And then on preparation for future, the number of respondees who said that was important, either a 1 or 2, was 60. So that's kind of impressive. The other thing that I'd point out on these, there's 2 of them. There's one is the parents that responded for their own child, and then the parents that responded for their school as a whole. And the board members can see this. The blue dots mean that we're satisfied, and the orange one means we're dissatisfied. For all 5 school tasks, for extracurricular, for assessment scores, for culture and behavior, for soft skills like respect and organization, and for preparation for future opportunities, for all 5 of those tasks, the parents were, for their own child, their satisfaction rating was higher than the dissatisfaction rating. Basically, they saw in all those that they thought their child, they were more satisfied than dissatisfied. When the same parents looked at the school overall, it kind of flipped around. In other words, in a sense, they said, my students' culture, behavior, I'm more satisfied with it. But when the school overall, it's the other way around. I'm more dissatisfied with the school culture. And you see a little bit of that with the patron too. They had more dissatisfaction, they had more high priority things. For the parents, the only thing where more than half of the parents said this is important was preparation for future opportunities, only half. Everything else was in the middle or less than half of the respondees. For the patrons, it was, once again, preparation for future opportunities, and then also assessment scores, and then also soft skills like respect and punctuality, and even culture. So there's just a different view. That was one thing I got out of this, that parents have a different view for the kids, they have a different view for the school of all, and patrons have a different view too. There's more difference in all those viewpoints than I realized. So that's my 2 cents on that. So perspective is everything, right?
Comments or conversation? Okay, if not, we're gonna move on to our next agenda item, which is a bond issue update.
Okay, brief update. Bid solicitations are going to be going out for the window and door project at the grade school sometime this month. We hope to have some information ready for the board to act on at the April meeting. Actually, we'll be meeting with your architect soon to start talking about the door project as well. So it's going to be coming up pretty quickly. Just a brief update.
Okay, any questions on? Okay, last place, we're down to item 9B, E-rate bids.
I don't want to say this is perfunctory, but to some extent it is. This is the last year of the 5-year cycle that we can expend these monies and then use it or lose it. We get a 70% discount on this technology equipment. Ryan has been working for a couple of months on this, and we work closely with our E-rate vendor, which is, or our E-rate administrator, which is SDAC. And the bid that I'm requesting you approve is for $68,908.96 for really a myriad of technology equipment. I've got the whole list right there. After the E-rate discount, the net cost is going to be $20,672.69. I believe I've got the rubric there for all of the equipment. I don't know if you guys have any questions on that, but again, if you don't approve it, we lose that money and we don't get it back. So it's basically 30 cents on the dollar for us, and it's something that I would suggest you approve. And it's a mirror, I don't know if you guys had a chance to use the weekend to look at that information as far as the equipment. You guys have
I
any
think it would be silly not to do it.
questions on that? And it is, H&B is the vendor we're suggesting we use. He had a rubric that he uses, and it's not just based on price, although I think they were like the lowest in most of them, but there's a rubric that you use that allows you to select one better.
I move we approve the bid from H&B Communications for the purchase of technology equipment within the E-rate program as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bid from H&B Communications for the purchase of technology equipment within the E-rate program as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, and we've already done that, so it's time for executive session.
Madam President, I move we go into an executive session to discuss the topics for negotiation pursuant to the election or employer-employee negotiations under COMA and the open meeting resume in the boardroom at
5 minutes.
9:42. 9:42.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss topics for negotiation topics for negotiation pursuant to exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA. Open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 9:42. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
ain't going anywhere. Need a couch, I got it.
Okay, great. There is, for their actions over here,